Welcome back to year 4 of ALGS Split 1, and I know we're all excited for day 2 to get underway. I'm Stella Chung, returning to you live after casting and hosting on year 2. And today, we're going to be seeing Group A return and watch Group C make their mark with some very familiar names entering the battleground for the first time in Pro League this season. We've got TSM, Luminosity, Disguised, Exet, and Furia in the lineup today. So I know we're all going to be waiting for the action. And joining me today is Tiff, the beautiful Spider Tiff, on the desk. Hi.
Oh, you flatter me. That's exciting. But here you go. You already named some heavy-hitting teams that we're going to be witnessing for the first time. Well, you'd be remiss to not include Legacy. I am so excited because Group C in EMEA was an absolute joy to watch with Aurora reigning supreme. But can our Group C candidates, albeit I call them the Group of Death, take over the leaderboard?
Yeah, I'm super excited to see that. And another person's perspective I'm curious on is, of course, Dia, who is joining us again for NA Day 2. Hi.
It is always a pleasure, especially here on the ALGS. I love Apex, and here we get to see the best, arguably, in the world, with North America being home to both of the LAN winners that have ever won LAN.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And of course, we are going to be talking about the teams participating today, but we can't do that without Zephyr, our last but not least cast member on the panel today.
I've managed to fight my way in here, and I come bringing prowess regarding the analysis, of course, alongside these North American teams. So we'll crack down, especially as we make our way through the matches today, and we'll figure out whether or not things like Conduit and ARs are good.
I am still very strong on Conduit being very viable for competitive, but I know that's a whole debate, and I don't know if we have time to get into that, but I know Tiff and I are kind of on the same side.
Yeah, we definitely are. I mean, in particular, Verhulst has had a lot of hot takes recently, throwing some heat on the timeline in terms of the double AR meta, also interesting pictures that we will not be including here. But regardless, excited to see what weapons he breaks out today.
Yeah, we won't think about that. But Dia, how do you feel about Conduit?
I mean, I've really enjoyed the way that she's changed the meta. I won't weigh in right now on the good versus bad because I am personally of the opinion that most legends can actually be competitively viable. As a Rampart enthusiast myself, I'm in no position to be throwing any shade.
It's an interesting take. Zephyr, I know you were pretty adamant about your take in the Discord when we were discussing things before the show.
I am a Raven denier. That's what I call myself right now.
Wow.
You're either a Conduit enjoyer or a Raven denier. And honestly, probably I hold little weight, especially after what TSM has been capable of. But I'm telling you, it'll come around.
All right, well, let's see how it did pay off for those teams who played Conduit last week. Here are the overall standings as they are right now, with Dark Zero up in first with 25 points over TSM with 21, Tiff.
I mean, look, Sykes pocket healing on Conduit, let's be real. No, but for real, Sykes did a really exceptional job as anchor for Dark Zero last week, allowing Jen and Zero to really excel. 25 points. It's just the start of year 4 for Dark Zero, and Zero himself said it on stream recently. He's like, I don't have a Split 1 trophy, and I really want one.
Yeah, Zeph, do you want to lead us through the next 11 to 20, the next page of these standings?
Of course, as we kind of drop down here, some interesting performances, most notably the one that stands out to me, teams waiting for PLP to show up down there in 16th with only 4, but plenty of others still looking to set themselves above the rest.
Yeah, and what a day show 1 was. I'm so excited to see how this is going to work. Now let's go ahead and look at the participating teams here. Dia, what can we expect from this incredible lineup today?
Well, Tiff has actually made a really good point just a few minutes ago that Group C, I think by a lot of people, was considered the group of death. The scary, scary group in North America. And the fact that now we get them going up against Group A is going to be a lot of really good analysis for us, because we get to compare probably the highest tier lobby that we've had so far, just in terms of the very high level that they're all able to play at. We've also got a really nice mix of preseason qualifier teams that have made their way in here, and for me at least, that means getting to explore a little bit more of the difference between where these teams are at and how they're trying to reach the very top that we'll also see exemplified in this lobby.
Yeah, and Tiff, what kind of quality of gameplay do you think we're going to be seeing today with Group A and C?
It's gonna be crazy. Look, if you added Dark Zero and Optic to this lobby, I think you've got LAN quality potential just between the entirety of what we're seeing. But Legacy, Moist Esports, they're in the same lobby every single match day, hailing from Group C, and they'll be contesting each other. So it's gonna be really interesting. I've kept eyes on scrims. Disguised has been looking crazy, and honestly, after what we saw in EMEA, I can only imagine what's gonna happen today.
Yeah, I mean, Tiff, listen, I feel like we've all alluded to this earlier, but we have some absolute behemoths clashing today to prove that they're still here.
I mean, you can call them behemoths, you can call them titans. Regardless, the walls are crumbling down, Attack on Titan style. So I want to go ahead and talk about a couple of those teams in particular. I'll kick things off with Disguise, the roster of It's Timmy, Enemy, Designful. Look, Toast and Disguise, they picked up a real winner, knowing just how strong of a performance the dojo was able to rein in on ALGS champs in 2023. Now, granted, they got there from winning the match point in last chance qualifiers, go on to finish 4th place. So that's a solid pickup. Plus, Timmy hit the timeline with an Itachi gift, so I think he's ready for a little violence today. Now, I turn my sights over to Xset there. They bring in the young demon Koifel to replace Sykes after maybe a lackluster performance at champs. I believe it was 28th in particular. So fun, knock, Koi. The vibes have been next level. So really excited to see what they can do because they need a LAN win. But then I set my sights on Moist Esports, right? Guild, Waltzy, MT, Guild, a North American ex-NRG player, joined alongside some APAC South players. Like, they moved over here to North America to play against the best of the best and essentially level up. And then I see Furia, Luda, Keon, no Luda, it's definitely gonna be Madness, let's be real here. Madness, his Watson, and Keon, the duo, or shall I say, his Roberto stepping in for his Watson to play tonight. Regardless of what it is, this trio has looked really solid in scrims. Madness has been making some really impeccable calls, the passion is there, and what kind of chaos are these guys gonna bring today?
Yeah, this is all really good intel and speculation. I mean, we can only know once we see the first match. But first, let's go ahead and see what Waltzy had to say about how he feels about his team right now and how their vibes are.
Hi, my name is Waltzy. My teammates are Empty, Guild, and Droga, and we are Moist Esports. Main reason being just the level of competition. We really want to make sure our results are consistent at LAN, and I think NA is just the best region to sort of practice for that. I think we have a very consistent playstyle, like mainly being zone, and with the pickup of Guild has made it incredibly easy to adapt to the region. Guild is just like a phenomenal player, and I think this team, with me and Empty, being that we've been sort of like on the brink of top 5 all year round at LAN, adding Guild, we are just sort of solidifying our spot as like a top 5 team. So I think we are adapting quite fine at the moment.
Love that he's saying that they're adapting quite fine at the moment, but there were a lot of real nuggets of information there that I think are incredibly vital to the success of Moist Esports moving into the new region for North America. Bringing in Guild, who has exceptional knowledge. He's played across a lot of these teams in year 3. So making sure that they can make those calls and adjust to North American region. Well, here's the deal. You gotta get through Legacy at Echo HQ first.
It's always such a delight to look into pros' mindsets. Now, Dia, let's talk about another team that we should be keeping our eyes on. I mean, we need to talk about Mute Lovers, right?
Yes, we do. I'm hearing Tiff talk about all these teams that I think many people at home are familiar with, the teams that they respect. But I'm interested in the teams that people fear. And people fear Meat Lovers. Not just because of the mechanical prowess that goes with this team, but their unpredictability. With Tech and Luxford sticking together, they've picked up A1s, a former Gears of War pro, who has made their way into the scene last year through the Challenger Circuit and the Pro League qualifiers. A1s and Rise dominated, fragged out, and now, paired alongside Tech and Luxford, you're just adding more firepower to a team that is already willing to push the limits of what's considered normal Apex Legends. We've got a lot of experimentation happening on their end, whether it be in contests, whether it be in lack thereof. Socials are also a big thing, of course, for the Meat Lovers, and Tech has decided to go about this in an interesting way by trying to avoid contests through legal means. Like, is it fair to call these legal means, Stella?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, but for the sake of the broadcast, let's say yes.
Okay. It is pretty neat to see the creative ways in which people are trying to navigate the POIs that we saw people fight over quite frequently over in EMEA, but specifically this does call out Evolution, and that's going to be a contest to keep our eyes on. When you've got the meat lovers, who again, people fear, going up against Evolution, who inspired a lot of that very same fear in the preseason qualifiers with their own fighting, let's just say Calamitizer could be home to a lot of really inspiring action.
Yeah, so you were talking about contests that we had in EMEA, but Zephyr, I believe that we see some teams with that. And, we got to talk about LG. I mean, what a roster.
Yeah, you bring up contests for LG. It doesn't get any different, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But I feel like all eyes are peeled on this team, maybe for good reasons, maybe for worse. Either way, Sweet, Slayers, Funked are here to represent for Luminosity Gaming. After last match day, they come out, at least they're in 4th position and sealing it with at least a nice win upon their belt. As a result, Luminosity looks poised to potentially be a heavy competitor here now in North America, but it's come along with it some growth. Of course, Sweet and Funk currently leading the pack damage-orientedly for this roster right now at a whopping 10k between the two of them off of our last match day, and a huge 3,000 damage differential between just the two there. Slayer's not far behind, down in the 10th position as well, but notably still catching up. On top of that, like I said, SKRT and Luminosity are going to be contesting in Lava Fissure, and that has been a challenge that the Luminosity roster still has to figure out.
Yeah, well, hopefully they have it figured out for today, but we can't talk about Sweet without, of course, talking about TSM and Hell. Now, listen, I am not afraid to admit, and I've said this many times before, that I am a diehard TSM fan. Ooh. CEO supremacy. I know. But there is a reason that TSM is Inter 3's champs. You can't doubt that. Individually, Reps, Hal, and Verhost are all incredible players, but put them together and you have this absolute force of a team. Work hard, play hard, am I right? We have to talk about the performance on day one. TSM and DZ were going toe-to-toe most of day one. We saw TSM outplaying and showcasing their ability to secure kills pretty easily. And I want to point out, DZ was only 16 points ahead in first last week, above TSM in second. So, Dia, I feel like we're going to see them really shine today after getting a feel for what to expect on day one. And we're going to be able to get some stats up here to back it up.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform today because, as you say, their statistics were second to only one on the first day of matches. Dark Zero, of course, with a clinic on the first day, but since they're not here today, TSM you would expect to top the leaderboards, given, as you say, their international accolades and performance on the first day of the season. I am curious, though, especially with the way that they've been performing so far, what a different lobby and up against Group C things will look like, because we've already made mention of a lot of teams they need to look out for. XZ also statistically topped the league at the beginning of last season, and with their pickup of Coifil, as we've already mentioned, I think Verholz, Tal, and Reps are in for a lot harder of a journey than they had last week.
Yeah, well, hey, that may work out to their advantage. Maybe they need some sort of challenge to be able to push them to feel like, hey, we got to try our all. I mean, listen, it's day two, and this is more time for them to get more points. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Tiff and Dia. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm going to let you take the first game away.
Hey, thank you so much, Stella and Zephyr. Dia, man, we are here, North America. EMEA was a treat. We've got differentiating POI drop spots. People are moving, people are changing, and we got to go back to Storm Point. But any thoughts in particular, especially with TSM kind of leaving the wall, getting adept to it with all of the new POI changes? How are we feeling?
I mean, I think that ultimately this is going to put, say, a team like TSM in better position. But when we think about Lightning Rod, I do think it pales in comparison to the rest of the POI changes. When initially, I believe, I'm going to rephrase this. The way that Lightning Rod was so powerful when TSM decided to move there has been taken away a bit, since Thunderwatch can no longer spawn its own beacon, so you're not getting a nearly guaranteed beacon scan, which has me curious about the way that this will interact with the rest of the lobby, because we still have Mill, we still have Pylon, we still have Ceto, and I don't think that TSM, just on landing, are really that far ahead of the competition.
Yeah, now that you mentioned a lot of those changes, let's go ahead and pull up the drop spot. Cedo in particular is going to be home to Native Gaming, but Coastal Camp, Echo HQ, I kind of was talking a little bit about that Moist Legacy contest that's been happening a lot in scrims, and it's been relatively dicey. That main building, the triangle one in particular, just under the O and H, is where a lot of the weapons spawn on the ground, and that is the main area of contest. Now, I watched a lot of this from Legacy's POV, and with Jaguares as the jump master, they're vying for that building in particular, and it can sway the ways things move. But with DNO Gaming kind of landing a little bit closer, when zones start to pull most southern areas, they are usually rotating in super quick to put a thorn in the side of that contest. But as we look at our map rotations for the days, Dia, we started out on Storm Point, we're going right back.
This is a good thing too, because I like the way that Storm Point does encourage teams to be a little bit more, I hesitate to say fast, but definitely loose with their positioning. While things can be really punishing with the lack of cover on Storm Point, you're also able to control a lot more space, and starting things out this way, incentivizing teams to actually take control over as much ground as possible translates into really nice World's Edge games later, where teams can use these skill sets that they've already warmed up and try and, let's say, push their games where they would individually go well to the maximum. I am really curious about the Echo HQ contest because it is a very punishing drop, and while we are seeing a little bit more of a spread in terms of teams on Storm Point, there still just don't seem to be enough POIs for everyone.
That's really tough, considering we saw a lot of rotational issues, especially around Ceto. So I'm curious to see what is going to be happening today. But as our players go through Legend Select, we get into that dropship, we lock and load, and we prepare for what that plane line is about to be. Will it favor the Echo HQ contest? Well, it looks to be doing just that. We're making our move from the east to west in a relatively central zone, and will Meat Lovers decide to make a play for Echo and get some early KP? We've seen them do it, and I'm ready to see if they try.
Does look like they've left the dropship early as everyone is starting to rocket on out. Right onto the center of the map. Anybody who lands towards the eastern side will actually have a pretty big lead on rotations into zone, and it's important to note with any drop path like this, if you're going Launchpad, if you're going Devastated Coast, even if you're going Echo HQ, from the time your boots hit the ground, you've still got about a minute until on the opposite end of the map, people finally land around Down Beast North Pad and are able to start playing the game.
All right, well, let's get down. Let's get ready. How will this 50-50 essentially pay off? The free cam shot already sows major damage to Waltzy and MT, with Legacy getting the early game favored position.
I wouldn't 50-50 Legacy if you paid me, and it is shocking to me to see them be able to take the center of this building and still be considering a fight ahead with Moist, who, granted, don't have a whole lot of options. You can't very well split Echo HQ loot as easily as you could other POIs, and Moist, waiting on the low ground, at least have blue and purple to go with it.
Look, and they've already used the Radiant transfer. The cooldown's ticking through, but MT, Guild, Waltzy, we said in the interview, Guild brings all of the information for the North American teams, and now we move straight back in, but Legacy having plenty of health to boot Niezel. I'm gonna botch his name, let me just tell you, Dia, and I feel so bad, but the angles that we are holding will reign supreme. Let that thermite burn.
Legacy having an advantage, at least in the positioning. They do have the option to just completely abandon this fight and move themselves out towards, say, Coastal Camp, Pylon, whatever their rotational path might be, but it would require leaving Moist unchecked behind, and not something they're super keen on. As a result, is going to drag out, neither team taking too much of a risk. Yanya's got a nice angle, can be separated and jumped on. Goes for the beam again. Azul commits onto the low ground, takes down MT. It's going to be another falling, but Azul goes down. It's just Jaguares left, and with an R845, manages to pick up Waltzy. It's a 1v1. Jaguares still waiting on the cooldown. Did use Conduit Q once again. Makes it, but does not break the purple shield of Guild before the shield swap. Moist win the contest over an Echo HQ.
Let me just tell you, Guild being brought to the Moist roster, hitting that reset, that has got to feel good. But let's turn our sights to the north where that zone is pulling, and we have got so much action here in the Pineapple buildings to start. Furia in the north, Disguised and Co. in the bottom. This is not what you want, Disguised. Their first showing have performed so strongly in scrims and are currently being held into such a small space.
When the fight takes so long that other teams have already rotated into zone, you know that it's going to be a difficult game ahead. A team like Disguised, I would say, however, doesn't have it any easier. Very little loot for them, and sharing a nut building in the north end of zone means that it's a placement position and a relatively passive one at that. They can't do much to drop in gaming, who have a great angle to continue harassing DSG.
Such a vital zone for them because they land in North Pad, so they have an easy rotation on in. But for the teams that are making their way into North Pad, vying for a lot of those gazebos, it's going to be really tough. And Drop In Gaming just trying to secure some positions here. Already 2 knocks on the hand of Disguised. Crook, Stunny, and Co. maintaining their health. They just need to find Designful.
With the knocks they've already got, this should be a nice finish. There are no ordinances left for Drop-In Gaming, though, so they do have to commit their bodies, and that means that everybody else is going to have plenty of time to run up on them. The problem is that with so many surrounding squads, nope, it's not as simple as you would otherwise like to just walk into this building. TSM will, however, walk into another one, getting a defensive catalyst wall out on the other side. It's no big problem, and TSM, their loot looking a lot better than Disguised was moments ago.
It's tough, right? But they're in the exact same position, just in a different nut building, and they're taking on Furia. We were highlighting them at the top of the show, but what will that roster be able to do? I just see a bunch of white shields, so the loot differential, everything that Raven was talking about on a prior stream in order to increase that fight time without Conduit is living up to the quality of TSM's loot potential. Watson and Keon both being on white. It's going to be really interesting that at least they have Conduit on for his Watson, so we can keep kind of reinforcing the team. But the push comes to shove, and they're just trying to maintain on the stairway. Madness goes down, and now it's going to open the door for TSM to completely annihilate them.
They do take out Furia nice and easily. This space moving up the stairs as unchallenged as TSM did should not have been allowed, but there wasn't a whole lot Furia could do about it. Tiff, we're going to be touching on this quite a bit, so I think it's important that we actually mention exactly what it was that Raven, the coach of TSM, was talking about. For people who perhaps didn't tune into the stream, didn't catch it, you can of course go find Raven on all of his socials. But Raven was talking about the Conduit and her value, because you'll notice that TSM aren't running Conduit, and the essential argument came down to the idea that Conduit is meant to, in Raven's opinion, provide more uptime for teams in fights. I've taken damage, normally I'd have to heal, but instead I can Conduit. And his argument is that this is not particularly valuable, or not as valuable as many people believe it to be, simply because there are other ways to increase your uptime, be it through just having better shields off drop, having better attachments, positioning better, having better scopes, whatever it may be.
That was a good summary. No, that's 100% it. Raven is a definite Conduit non-enjoyer, but regardless, TSM has been performing exceptional. But as we get a good look at that zone, so many of our teams have already made it in, but with the atrocious zone pulls that we've been witnessing, more in particular on Storm Point, we are hedging our bets that it is pulling towards that Jurassic, towards the nut buildings. But for Oversleepers, something that they're doing, rotating into the wall, they're going to play for that ring console and really get that information. But for our teams that have really hedged their bets, well, that zone pull shows they're right.
Yeah, especially when you have second zone read. It's such a simple thing to commit to moving on up towards the north, because if we get out into Cascade, everybody's going to have to funnel out through these chokes anyway. But if you actually end up going towards North Pad, there's just not a whole lot that you can do if you're already positioned outside, like, as we said, Oversleepers. Because let's think about the areas of entry they have. They have the southern choke point, and they have a sharp drop out of wall. Not particularly easy for them to deal with. The Meat Lovers, one of the squads we talked about earlier, however, are also going to be a squad that should have a difficult time rotating. Unfortunately, if you're playing like this, it's pretty clear your game plan does not revolve around rotations.
No, it definitely doesn't. It revolves around fighting, and it looks very akin to what we saw from Aurora earlier, that Bloodhound Bangalore Horizon combo. Now, on their rotation here out of Launchpad, we can kind of look towards what information they may be able to get. Their rotation could take them kind of towards the lift on the left of the survey beacon, and for 9 Lives, well, it takes them right into an engagement. We're already expending some ultimates there and trying to disengage from the fight. We want to stabilize inside this building because we still have to make it towards zone.
Another one of those terrifying preseason qualifier fight god squads, but 9 Lives do not take the full engagement. Trading relatively evenly in Ceto Station, they'll instead choose to move up towards the ring and should be met. The squad right behind them, Skirt, still shooting them in the back. 9 Lives get to disengage, get to move their way up towards the future zone, and Skirt that's future 9 Lives' problem.
It's actually really interesting. I'm watching the pick rates for our lobby kind of filter through. Bangalore, Catalyst, Horizon kind of reigning supreme, and that's where North America is really different. Watson has only been picked twice, and it's the very heavy potential is actually in the APAC South region, but for Conduit to only make a stay on 9 teams, roughly just less than half of the lobby. For those teams that are not running Conduit, hopefully you were paying attention to Raven's lecture on the fight uptime and maybe get your macro in gear. Regardless, we can see Sentinels kind of playing from the buildings on the right, below right. Over Sleepers, though, sitting on that triple purple, and Charmander, JP, and Vodric. Man, look, this squad gets me hyped.
Yeah, and for good reason. Vodari is, I think, one of the youngest pros we've ever had, and on MNK, the whole squad on MNK. Over Sleepers are trying to do perhaps not the impossible, but the improbable in our first couple of days of matches. They are going to have a difficult task ahead of them, but with a triple MNK squad coming out of preseason qualifier, with one of, as we said, the youngest and probably the most hyped players in Apex history, I'm looking forward to seeing what Vodari and the team can do. JP, gonna try and IGL them to victory, as DNO take a slightly different approach. They are sitting on high ground outside of the ring, but are gonna be thinking likely about evacing out of here.
They could potentially be playing for that ring console, then to hit the evac as well, but you've got to take that engagement first on. You were talking about most hype players, and then we immediately see Dude's Night Out come out, and I'm just like, doop! I just got to give me a moment to be able to scream that. But Moist Esports looking poised to continue on their rotation, specifically post winning the contest against Legacy, but they were kind of running into Skirt. And that team has been forced to take a massive negative rotation into zone to try and hit a reset.
Looks like Moist are going to be facing off against 9 Lives, who rotated in here earlier. I do wonder if they'll take the fight, but only they can tell us. Let's take a listen in with Moist.
I'm down to look for this. I might drop spiders and walk up.
Yeah, I think we look for this. 72 on 1. I'm pacing. I think we look for this.
I'm walking up.
Cracked him. Showing my red.
Not every team's full. Probably a Phoenix and I'm
Hey, I think I see that teammate. I think he's on the right. Did they have a Horizon? I've just hit 156 blue. I'm walking up.
Crack bang! Split!
I'm taking
Coming
space inside the building.
It's a 3 minutes.
Healing you, Watsi. I can't. Don't have
I'm chilling. This is bad though.
Yeah, let's push.
We might want to double back. It's a 3 minute.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Can you smoke our way back?
Yeah. I think we might just want to like queue up or something. Right here.
We can zip.
Okay.
We still have time. We're gonna want to like crank a late evac through the choke or something.
Are we going to cascade?
Somebody on us!
On me.
Water.
Nice. Keep moving.
Okay.
But yes, we are gonna have to crank a late evac through the choke.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
We can slam down here. We can slam like in the rocks here.
Okay. Lots of squads alive right now.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to get like deep to rip it though, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Deeper at least.
There's guaranteed going to be a team hard holding that choke.
Yeah, there's a team on the rock in front of me. The big rock. We might want to rip it behind this tree.
Yeah, I think we have to. We want to rip both. You guys want to rip both?
Yeah, you guys go. You guys go. I don't have one. I do not have
I'm
one.
calling mine.
Both you do it. Both you do it.
Mine.
I'm taking the front one.
Yeah, taking the front one. Tree should cover us.
Following empty?
We're just flying through.
Yeah, go through the left choke, okay?
Okay. There's gonna be a skits landing.
Follow me.
Doing it. I procced early. This is really bad.
Slam this corner, slam this corner.
Okay, slime this
That's
corner,
going
slime
up.
this corner. I'll smoke the second we land.
Wait, they're fighting on the. They're fighting in
Keep
the
looking
left
for us
building.
already.
Yeah, it's chill.
Can we get in? Can we get in?
Can we go bottom?
Yeah, I'm
Let's
getting
go,
in.
let's go.
Get in.
I'm
Get in on me. Get in on me. I'm batting. Hold for me, please.
Is everybody have digis or no?
No.
Okay, I won't use smokes then.
I'm walking up here.
Look at the
yourselves,
stairs.
pop yourselves.
On the stairs, cracked.
Yes,
Yes, blue
yes.
armor. Blue armor bang.
Wait,
Pick
blue?
this.
Yes, I'm peeking.
They walled. It's a bad wall.
No tags, no tags, no tags.
I'm nading in the corner.
They can't do it. I'm sliding down.
Play down. Come, Gil.
Healing you.
Huh?
Picking this door, picking this upper door. He reinforced it.
I'm gonna plan Waltzy and bat.
Yeah, good.
Careful of this window, Waltzy.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to look everywhere. Wait, are they rezzing? Someone just rezzed outside my door, I think.
I'm with you, Waltzy.
Yeah, do it. Kill this. No!
Go
Get inside.
Look stairs.
I got a bat. Is there a team in this building?
I
don't know.
Do you want to look?
Yeah,
Maybe.
look out here, look out here.
On stairs.
Come, Gil, come.
60 blue,
Listen
coming.
to us.
Yes.
Bang on me.
Healing you.
Bang one. I'm going
Under,
inside.
under.
Come back.
Gil, get in.
I'm getting in. I'm batting.
I'm batting. Okay, we gotta chill. We gotta run out to here somehow.
Yeah. I'm gonna
I'm
loot the
looting these
boxes.
boxes
I
real
need
quick.
bats. Yeah, I need bats. No bats.
Yeah, drop me a bat here.
Alright, good. Can we play out here early? I don't know. When this conduit ult's out, we might need to like.
We could try and kill this team above us again. We're
They're
triple.
fighting over here. They're fighting over here.
Do we look
One
for
just
it?
got knocked. I don't know. I don't really think so.
Do you want to try and fight the team above us or no?
I think we just sprint to here.
Watch out inside.
Healing you.
Yeah.
They have a goo on the stairs. They have a goo on the stairs. Peeking down low.
We might want to just run
batting.
early.
I'm batting. I'm down, empty. I'm following
Where are we
you.
going?
I think follow me.
Can you conduit up behind or bang on?
Come to this upper wall. Yes, I can. Keep moving. I think chill here for a bit.
Is there a team bunker? I don't know if there's a team bunker. There is.
There is.
There's a team out here. There's a team out here,
Hey,
guys.
bang on behind.
Yes.
Where?
Bang on
Bang.
150. Bang on like right here on me. 150.
All right, bang on thing.
We just want to slide it into here and play there.
There's a team
Right,
down here.
I'm sliding down.
Not with you, I'm coming late. I'm good. I'm here. I got stunned by his bang ult. I'm mech hitting.
We're trying to cover. Smoke us.
I don't have smoke.
Just play low.
Team out here.
Play low.
We're gonna look behind as well.
I'm looking.
Can we swing bunker? Can we pick bunker backside?
Wait. Nobody's here. Yes.
Come peek. Cat! Watch out!
Run.
Yes.
Healing.
I'm going in.
Ready to go. Swing. Play stone.
On the front. Three people.
Flash. 60 flash.
I have to bat.
I'm weak. I'm queuing.
I'm nading.
myself.
Swing it in.
Bang one.
Dead. I got a bat. I'm batting.
Get it down soon.
Killed.
Just got one more
Waltzy.
crack. Nice.
Native Gaming gone, Xset gone, and they are just moving forward. Meat Lovers able to move into the position that Xset has found themselves, and Moist just trying to stabilize. A banger game for them here in map number 1. Welcome to North America, Moist.
What a fascinating way to navigate this zone close. 9 Lives now starting to push up on Moist, but that's going to be very quickly dissuaded. Guild should be able to heal up, and the ring continues to be so punishing, pulling up towards drop-in gaming, or shall I say former drop-in gaming, as they get wiped off the map.
TSM gone, Oversleepers. We had so many people playing those 3 nut buildings just towards the eastern side of where that zone had already closed. But you know who did make it out? LG Dia.
Managing to survive for now. They're actually holding in a position where a lot of teams are going to have to move through them. That includes Moist, 9 Lives, and Meat Lovers, who are still down towards the south end of the zone in the IMC Armory. Ring starting to close. DNO hold the northmost point.
I'd be curious to see kind of what they're doing up there, because they had to fend off a lot of teams to be able to make that space for them. But for Meat, Tech taking on the Titans of APAC South, Moist right now, the latest to join, but it's going to be Waltzy, the first one to go down at the hands of Luxfordy.
This ring does not mess around. It's a late cat wall and a late rotate and a late push from 9 Lives as they start moving up on the Meat Moist fight. 9 Lives do still have all 3 members up, but Laser goes down and it's to Dupe as DNO start to take charge.
Look, a top 3 now. 9 Lives, LG, and DNO. But look towards the spacing here, Dia. It's going to be Dude's Night Out. Dupe, Crossed, and Senox holding such magnificent space around that rock, able to put immense pressure onto 9 Lives. Meanwhile, it's just LG kind of vibing out by themselves.
Trying not to attract attention. The win condition for Luminosity here is absolutely getting DNO to fight 9 Lives. The bait in with the res beacon has DNO on the push, but no res is going to come in for 9 Lives as Dynasty goes down and DNO have control. As you said, we know that Luminosity are still moving up, and with a Catalyst wall, they control the angles really well. Sweet does go low, swings through the wall, almost goes down, and somehow dips, dives, and dodges just behind this rock to get the health off Slayer. Stays out in front, again, very nearly going down, and he will fall as DNO turn around.
DNO Dupe able to make that clutch and grab Slayer there. Now Sweet, will he be able to turn this around? Not when 9 Lives are putting the finishing moves onto Slayer, but it's going to be DNO making their approach from that eastern side and holding out just underneath that dark veil. But the moment that wall falls, it's going to open the doors and all of those lines of sight will open.
Sweet's going to die. This is a second place for 9 Lives. That is certain. Dupe starts to move up. DNO want to finish the game. 9 Lives actually go down as Sweet just takes the 1v1. But it's enough to set DNO on the path to victory. Their first game now taken as a win, and a very strange one at that. The end game pretty darn unusual.
That is definitely a really interesting zone, pulling all the way up north. The collapse that kind of went underway, and you think to the performance of DNO on their first match day, it was only 17th place. So they knew what they had to work on, and they had to bring their all in match day number 2, and they do so by winning map number 1. Claps. That's what they needed.
And can I just say as well, 9 Lives, preseason qualifier team, first day on Pro League, first game on Pro League, 3rd place. Not bad.
Overall, it's been really interesting to see. Now, granted, we did spend a lot of time with Moist, kind of learning the intricacies of how they were going to hit that rotation. We knew we were going to miss out on some of those mid-game fights with that, but as you could see, Meat effectively was holding the choke point that Moist was moving towards. Moist's decision to evac over them and play for those buildings allowed Meat to kind of walk into those fights and just battle it out, Dia. And I know you were talking a lot about them in that preseason show, or the pre-show. Tell me a little bit more about that. Are you pleased with the Landlord Tech's performance?
I really am, and this came down more to timing than anything else, especially with the way that Meat chose to hold things out, because they weren't really challenged on a purely factual basis. With things like the early contests going off, the really early rotates as well into the north side of zone, Meat's path forward into this game was one that was mostly just based on, are other people fighting? Great, then we can move forward. And we saw their progress stopped at that very same point. When other people were fighting, but finally had to actually focus on Meat, Meat went down. And they went, like a lot of other teams did, sort of ruthlessly as our fights began in the north, and ultimately drew a lot of folks in to be quickly eviscerated by multiple squads with open sightlines.
Speaking of eviscerate, I mean, Alb was just trying to live, bro, and Moist just cuts them down. But it was really interesting as we had a very northern zone. Think back to the journey that DNO had to have. Now, they didn't grace our main broadcast a lot while we're looking through some of these highlights, but DNO, Dia, they start in Coastal Camp.
Yeah, having made their way all the way up has me really curious about the rotation. As you said, we followed Moist and got a really good micro idea of how they approach this game, and it let teams like DNO sort of fly under the radar, perhaps over it, as evac towers are certainly one of the ways that you could have gotten here. The fact that DNO managed to play this from such a normally awkward position means that they took it, again, at the right time, and that's what a lot of Apex Legends, and specifically the sort of North Pad-esque zone, comes down to. It's a 9-kill game for them, a 21-point start, which is not bad, not super dominant, so we'll see how DNO, and if they can, stay ahead of the pack.
They definitely need to keep doing that, but for LG Sweet, coming in 14 points and 9 lives, the preseason qual team tied alongside Meat Lovers with 13, and even Moist surviving that initial Echo HQ contest. But Drop in Gaming also having a solid performance as well. Kind of interesting as we kind of look through TSM finding themselves in 10th. I'd love to jump over to the 11th through 20th position here to kind of touch base on some of our teams that may have not made it towards that end game, because the ultimate collapse that ensued on that North Pad, it was kind of wild. Sentinels on the second page only able to grab 3, but you see a slew of teams that couldn't even get 1 elimination. A little bit of chaotic here.
Yeah, this is, well, unexpected. Even off the top of the show, we talked about Furia, Disguised, Xset, Legacy, all of them in the bottom 10 after our first game. But again, punishing Ring in our first game. Very difficult to make your way over to North Pad, predict the zone effectively, and be able to play in this incredible open space. So no judgment yet. We're taking our time, and after our first game, this is just a starting point.
It is. It's really the litmus test of what the A and C group matchup is going to look like. But for our top 3 finishers of match number 1, when you see the damage that DNO Gaming was able to throw down, 4,100, and it makes 9 lives performance at 3,800, equally impressive in my opinion, Dia.
I certainly think so. 9 Lives super active through this ring, through these rotations, because while we were again on board with Moist, 9 Lives were basically right next door to them the entire time, having to take a slightly different rotation through checkpoint that actually took them right underneath DNO. And as I say that, I know how DNO got out of the ring. They evac off of checkpoint. That's how you make it to that point without. I said it.
I answered my own question. But for 9 Lives, we were spending so much time with Moist, and that was the initial fight that was happening when Moist effectively decided to rotate through Cascade. So it was really critical to see it from Moist's POV. But now we just have to run it back, do the Vaughn review this week, and see it from 9 Lives. But for everyone at home, we're gonna cut to a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna have match number 2 on Storm Point.
Welcome back, everyone, to the ALGS here in North America. I am, of course, Dia, and Tiff has changed outfits next to me, transforming into Zephyr. Hello, Zephyr.
I will say I'm not as fashionable. I do my best, but I keep it dull and brown so that you folks at home can focus on the game and not me and not Verhulst.
And that one's difficult. Pulling attention away from Verhulst, that would be a serious masterclass in upstaging. But fortunately enough, we've got the game to do that for us, because that, at the very least, especially after game one, has proved to be extraordinarily exciting with the DNO first match victory. Zephyr, now it's time for us to start things off in match two, where likely we'll be getting a bit of a different ring, because I talked about this in game one, but that's a pretty rare circle pull for us to get, especially in zone one.
Yeah, to go not just far north to say something like North Pad, but also then some into the Black Island finish is definitely one of the most difficult to call zones, and as you saw, one of the most difficult to play. We didn't even have full rosters in the end. DNO were grantedly handed the win just from their positioning alone. Granted, they picked up enough damage and KP to warrant their success in other metrics.
Yeah, and a really smart way to play that as well. DNO played off of basically information as their main weapon. As much as we saw them put up a lot of damage, a lot of that had to do with the height and the distance that they were able to put between themselves and other squads. Then using the data that they got out of the ring console over a checkpoint and an evac tower, they got to put themselves in the best position. And that's what really fascinates me about Apex Legends and the ALGS Zephyr, is how much information and smart plays like that are rewarded. So I look forward to seeing that as we get ready to drop into game number 2 on Stormpoint.
Now, the big thing that I'll be watching here as we make our way into this second game is, well, back down towards the southeast. We walk away from DNO and their large rotation, but here, as our dropship makes its way through, my eyes are peeled towards Legacy and Moist.
And that contest is going to take place late. We talked about this in game 1, but with the dropship path this time going north to south, teams like LG and TSM, starting at Lightning Rod and Zoo Station, they're the ones with first move, the first boots on the ground, and Lightning Rod has rolled a ring console with it, so teams, again, TSM and LG, both actually, with Zoo Station having one as well, should have not only first move, but a large amount of data and high ground, so should be a pretty good game for those that start up north.
Now, I will say, as much as I'd like to say I'm kind of interested in seeing what this delay might act upon, notably Moist, who comes out on top of that original contest, were able to walk all the way to 5th, as you guys got the lovely opportunity to hear, but it seems like the tides have changed dramatically.
They have. This is an uncontested drop. Moist land over in Echo HQ with Legacy. Normally, I would say it's a mystery where they've landed, but I'm going to tell all of you in the audience because I love you. They've landed over in Millage. That would be just east of Mill, north of Cenote Cave. Playing out of kind of not a real POI, just to avoid an early fight and hope that they can put up some points in game number 2.
Well, you know what? I'm more than happy to see a team drop it like that, especially with 2 good games on the board for them to truly put up the score that matters here. Going off of the ego contest can be incredibly punishing, and for a team like Legacy, who's trying to make impressions on their very first day into the matchup, it's to no surprise. The question, though, Dia, is if they can recover from something like Millage, right? It's not the best loot. It's not the best setup.
Very, very true, and it's honestly not the best rotate out either. From Millage up towards Wall. Remember, we talked about how teams like LG and TSM had ring console, and they had high ground, and they had first move. Well, they've also got a northern ring. LG, in fact, has already made their way into zone. Furia sitting over by Wall for the moment means that teams like Moist, like Meat Lovers, that want to take the late rotates, even Oversleepers, who started over in Devastated Coast and are going to be able to make use of the crafting over there, will have, I'll say, a slightly easier game this time, but still one where they're pretty heavily disadvantaged.
At least when we talk about getting into the wall area, for a majority of the teams, though, a lot of that pressure is going to start off in Cascade Falls. Once you have made the official rotation past that center of the map there, it's going to be the 8 or 9 squads that we'll be seeing into our end game. So if you can kind of breach that position before we start getting into the final zones early, you should be fine, even if you have a long-winded move.
High ground of the Spider Caves, going to be finished off by TSM. Now, this is a squad that could have made an early rotate, but choosing not to, perhaps because of the shield situations, the lack of crafting up at Lightning Rod, means that their econ does want to be in a better place. As we talked about last game, wanting to maximize the uptime that they have in fights via other means, because TSM are not running the conduit, something they've always got to consider. Native have just picked up a really nice squad wipe onto 9 lives, and Evolution go down as well elsewhere on the map. But Cedo Station starts us off with some early action.
While we love some of our underdog stories, especially when it comes to the rosters out of the PLQs here, it doesn't work out for the likes of either Eevee, of course. And now with Native now in their successful pickup, they're going to be one of the few squads that have a closer rotation, and on top of that, 3-piece for loot.
It's kind of funny. I find it satisfying. I get to write in my notes, N8, kill N9. Not every day. Not every day the numbers line up like that. It's like the E607. Oh, that's delicious.
All right, well, Dia figures out how to write less. I'm going to figure out how to write more here as Luminosity will continue to write their story today. Already in high ground position, even if this doesn't cater directly towards wall, this is a great place to make first impressions, whether it be getting into the area or staying up there as things might pull back. Granted, with Sweet on this long-winded peak, might say otherwise.
Oh my RKN, what happened to you, my man? Sitting on white shields in zone, both teammates dead. It is not the early zone rotate that Sentinels wanted, but trying to move in towards Furia, this is what it got them. Drop In Gaming gonna try and fight this out as RKN did want the banners, but I believe got them denied by Crook's presence. This wall area now just a straight up fight between these two rosters. Drop In and Furia are basically ignoring RKN.
At this point here, though, it's still in a position where, well, RKN can't capitalize, and we'll finally see the movement back. 20 seconds on the board there for RKN to stunt out, potentially get this box, and I'd say get out of wall. Notably, it's very unlikely that he's going to pull for the revive here, but potentially working his way back in either from the western side, or if you're lucky and can tank it, the north is your only option you have.
Yeah, there are always, you know, ifs, ands, or buts about survival items and different rotates that you can take. There is always the option to go even, I'm going to hesitate to say further north, perhaps west of wall into the nut building area that we saw the end game at earlier. But these are all, honestly, pretty copium ways of dealing with what Sentinels have right now, which is not a whole lot of autonomy in this game, as opposed to the other teams that did make moves into places like wall early. As this zone is about to close, we will get an idea of where the next ring is going and who's actually in a favored position, because the predictions we've got so far, pretty general. This, a whole lot more specifically in favor of Drop In Gaming, Furia, and GKS.
Even Luminosity there, if they can make the rotation later on, and more importantly, defend with what might be TSM behind them, are also in a great position. I want to point out Oblivion there and Oversleepers contesting for the southern side of our zone. They're going to be the gatekeepers of a lot of these squads, whether they come out of that command center area or bridge through the Cascade Falls gap we were discussing earlier on. I do also want to really note that Xset, Moist seem to be baking in the sun. Xset with recovery and down beast. Moist still taking their time.
This one I actually feel kind of good about, especially with Moist having had crafting at Echo HQ. Now they have crafting at Devastated Coast. If they want it, they have crafting at Launchpad. It is such a stacked south side of the zone that you're certainly not going to die to ring, and you've even got the chance to pick up a few beacons. See how well they make their way in, as Sentinels have done so with the nicely respawned shields. Zenile, fortunately, at least has blues for now, and Sentinels have been able to set up in perhaps not the best place, but it's a whole lot better than what they had earlier.
And for Skirt, even though this is particularly late, we know, given the lack of presence here in the wall, this still might be a relatively playable area, even if it does look like the majority of that building is cut off here. Opting for wall or the bins ahead, they're going to get some minor recovery. I do worry about the entrance outside of this cave and potential rotations from there, but at least for now, the evac has come true. It's come blue, and Skirt are likely to be playing out this endgame now.
Enjoy the smoke. At this point, you do not want Skirt being able to hit you at all. The lack of scouting that Skirt have, the lack of information on Sentinels and their economic shield situation is just favoring Sentinels, since we know from our omniscient perspective that they really do not have a lot to work with. Fury have been sitting tight, and you have to imagine their economy is okay, but with no crafting over here at wall, it honestly can't be that good either, and they should be quite conservative about the way they're playing out the next couple of zones if they're actually wanting to play for the #1 spot.
Flat here, in a similar situation to what we discussed earlier on when it came to the gatekeeping potential of teams like Oversleepers and Oblivion. They themselves not really footing for space any further north into the exteriors of the wall, and as a result, probably aren't going to be doing much for any quite time. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Optimally, they're not really getting position in a zone which surprisingly had a lot more playable space than they maybe even expected.
Yeah, there's still, I'd say, quite a bit of time to make your way in.
Oh, hey, Moise.
Got high ground over by LG that you can always move up on with a few nicely placed Bangalore smokes. That isn't really the staging ground for a fight. As Moist start making their way through Command Center, we'll actually see them take similar rotations, you've got to imagine, but we'll see who else is actually in command and on the exit of it. Flat take an engagement, and that's through both Conduit and Catalyst ultimates, with Nano very nearly falling. In the meantime, Big Louie not doing too well.
For Native, a double knock off of the Rolling Thunder is more than they even probably were going to understand they were getting off of that ultimate alone. Now left just one. Definitely in the position to go for these revives off of what I don't assume will be a push here, but guaranteed to lose out officially on one full member. Incredibly difficult. Now looking to defend a great beam there.
Well, that's just dirty. We do have a little while for Flat to reset. Now with the smoke and the Digi advantage, they may even be able to recuperate with a banner here. Big Louie could get back into the game. Just a minute left on the rotate. Their biggest problem, however, isn't even the fight in front of them. It's the one that's going to happen when eventually they've got to move into the ring, because Oxygen still hold the exit to Command Center.
Potential Moe's down here, a recovery in process. They've got great cover on the back end of this corner and should be able to dip and dive and get Big Louie back into play here. Notably, Native Gaming, who they just put presence down on top of, is officially eliminated here. So, well, yes, stuck between Oxygen and DNO. Guarantee that they might be finding their third. But like you said, still not much of a position ahead here. The same could even be said for TSM, though.
Very true. TSM are likely to have to fight Luminosity on their way in, and Luminosity, just from their positions on the map, very clearly know that that is their next biggest threat. A team from above. They're not even looking behind the exit from Command Center, because that's going to be, honestly, a place with a lot of action in it anyways. Luminosity are unlikely to be threatened by anybody except TSM. This is the big fight that will likely determine the course of this lobby, or at the very least, the eastern side of the ring.
Notably, Verhol's playing quite a bit more rooted on the backside of this cave here. As you can see, the rest of TSM, Reps and Hal, looking to start to move in.
They do have a lot of options. They can take the fight against LG. They can wall, making their way into, yeah, you guessed it, wall. Who's to say what option they'll take? Let's find out with the TSM listening.
Go now so we can go! Oh, that's their bangle, that's their bangle. Fly over on me, fly over on me. I got stun. Ready to flame. I'm trying to shoot for you guys. Smoking on you, smoking on the tree. I cracked one. I'm cracked one.
Smoking on you.
You can come across. I cracked one.
Coming. Dodge that. You can walk out on me.
We're fine. We're fine. We're fine.
Respawn's good, I think.
They might swing us far left. They might swing far left. Be
Any
careful.
optic cells?
No, yeah, here.
He has one.
Fucking that.
They might swing far left, like I said.
I know, I'm watching.
That's good. They wasted Bangle and Counted-Ult. That's good.
They're on height of the building. Evan, can you hard stare a building, bro?
Yep, yeah, I got you.
Watch our swings.
They Bangle to the tree spot, like here. No,
Not
far
far.
left, like I said.
Smoking
I
that
can see
guy.
that guy. 80. He's darking us.
We can dodge this.
I'm safe here. Can you smoke, bro? Like,
Yeah, I'm smoking.
Right in
Yeah.
here.
Let's have a smoke. I have one smoke. No smokes now.
keep shooting at him, Evan. Or
Yeah.
Jordan.
I am. Trying to arc him out of that. I have no more smokes for 20 seconds, bro.
Okay. We might have to jump down.
I think we're going to have to. I have no smokes for 15. Is angling us.
Okay, jump down now.
Jumping.
Come to me.
Coming.
Getting shot. I'm getting shit on. I'm getting shit on.
Smoke above us if you have
I
it.
can't. At the bat
Got
here.
him. We can.
Smoking above.
Careful
smoking
above.
now.
They're going to look above. They're going to look above. Come to
Are
me.
we safe on you? Are you safe on you?
Should we
Okay.
not shoot over the building? I'm just dead, bro.
Give us knock.
We have to go over the ball.
Yep.
I'm just getting shot from everybody. Like, I knew that was going to happen, man. Come over the wall.
As we return from listening to TSM, it's just in time because they are no more. After what looked like a decent move past LG, the constant pressure that Sweet was able to put on pushed TSM into a very awkward position, Zephyr, and now they don't get to play anymore.
No, that is it here. And for many of our other rosters, making their way out from the south side has come with its challenges. Oversleepers, of course, eliminated out in what was Legacy, and many others off of this choke, but it only gets worse, Dia. With this next ring close, we're taking it to the POI direct. You can already see the evacs of hope in the distance.
And that hope's going to be cut short. Oxygen do not get to take that jump tower. They have got to walk it in. Exet have just flown in and are contesting over GKS's former spaces. GKS have just evacuated and into the ring, no less. This is wall or die.
Luminosity still in a good transaction in this space of height here, looking for movements in, shot from afar from what I can only assume is Meat Lovers. They'll take the prior position of our friends DSM here as they survive for moments more. A quick Radiant transfer to potentially give them access to this fight.
Nice! Great tracking from Funk to take down a member of Moist. One left and Moist should be gone, and Nade ruins their lives. The Woltsy taking out Funk just before Moist go down. This leaves LG crippled but still alive on the other side of this wall, and they use Catalyst Ultimate as well to cut off any additional sightlines. Luminosity will get back into this game, down a cooldown, but up a squad.
It's a solid recovery for the likes here, and they'll see if they can foot their way through the doorway, but we're counting 8 squads, all contesting for space. Disguise, we haven't gotten to talk about them much this game, but they're able to get the free walk out from West Wall and are on the hillside, and that's something that will actually come back to assist them here as we take a look at that next zone in its far western side pole.
Yeah, with the ring as it is, Disguised actually are... I hesitate saying God spot because I like thinking of high ground like that, but it's a game-winning position. It's one that we've seen win games at LAN, where Disguised was. Skirt do go down, and Exet join them. That's at the hands of Luminosity, who will be moving in from the south side of this zone. Furia have to watch their backs. A lot of teams converging on the Furia building, and remember, the Furia, the very same, who was down meds, who's lacking autonomy in this game.
Well, they may lack autonomy, but they still continue to persist here. Last time I checked in with Madness, he was sitting on white. Evidently, the exchange has come through with the full red Evo available. Doesn't change the fact, though, that multiple squads are going to be looking for this real estate here as we start to choke away space. You can see that on the outskirts. Sentinels, Meat Lovers, already trying to cross this bridge, already trying to contest for positionings, much similar to Disguised.
And Disguised, I think, as Tiff said earlier, just have to play small right now, making sure that nobody pushes them. Sentinels, not that lucky. With RKN throwing a few good bullets through the Catalyst wall, are still not going to be able to make a big difference in their fight. It's just up to Denial, and the PK pumps are going crazy, but not crazy enough, as 99 is all that he's able to do. Meat Lovers get sent on from above after wiping Sentinels. A1's is 1 HP and getting chewed through by Disguised, who finally pop up and take the third party.
I have to say, from Disguised, this is a decision that seals this game in more ways than you can expect here. Had they not actually gotten aggressive and capitalized in that moment after that fight, that would have been full resets and a thorn in their further objectives. Instead, they're now one of the few squads who gets to play outside of the stack, if not the only squad.
But they don't have Catalyst Wall for Disguised. They do have to worry about that, as GKS on height are arguably their biggest threat during the next zone club. GKS, fortunately, super hyper focused on the opposite side of the ring, where we've got Oblivion hanging on for dear life. Just 30 seconds left on this zone close, and it's going to be all about Catalyst Walls, Bangalore smokes, and the ability to cut off lines of sight. Jay gets chewed through by Arcology, but Oblivion lose one, they lose two.
Oblivion here, still looking for space. Arcology playing ring around the corner. If there's much to a ring to be said, will be forced to sit upon the pylon now as a single member, his former rosters, getting obliterated on the other side.
Arc can't swing this again, not till he hits a med kit or some such. At this point, it's going to be just him in this corner. GKS looking down from above. Furia still in the building. And while we've talked about Disguised, well, they've moved back to that game-winning position. Make no mistake, Furia can absolutely win this as well, especially with proper cooldown management. Nobody has forced them to expend anything. They have all ultimates, all tacticals, and honestly, a decent amount of meds and grenades as well.
Yeah, clearly getting some good resets here off of most of these teams moving in. Now with their eyes trained on the window, they should be able to pick up some great damage, but are unable to go for full. There it is, wipes onto Arcology, takes us down to our top 4 remaining, as now we look towards this contested space. GKS and Furia likely to leave these buildings at the same time here. And of course, Drop In Gaming trying to foot their way in across from Disguised.
Disguised do not want to get baited into this fight. They need to keep Drop In Gaming on the opposite side in a position where they're climbing up right next to GKS. But Catalyst is making it really difficult. A few zoning arc stars now thrown out means no more nades for Disguised. Furia drop a Catalyst wall, cutting off their lines of sight. Drop In Gaming capitalize on that, moving up right next to Disguised. And it's a Furia versus GKS fight. Disguised versus Drop In Gaming on the other side.
GKS launched upon with some ordinances down. A big crack found on Chaotic, much there as Gion on the other side obliterates and finishes. Watson in Disguise now from above, looking to take advantage of damage down.
Timmy drops back down, hitting a heal before the third party comes in. Designful gonna get finished from up on top. Furia go down. It's just Disguised and Drop In Gaming. Drop In Gaming have all 3 members on the low ground. Enemy would need to pull off the 1v3 of his life, and up here, he is on a pyre for Drop In Gaming to roast alive. Drop In Gaming take the second game of the day.
They held out until the very end, and in a calling grace of God, a beautiful dark veil gives them the space they need. After a fight among heights upon heights there, Drop In barely take a single lick of damage to work their way into a win.
That I'm sure that Disguised are going to rewatch that VOD and go, that one Catalyst wall, that one Furia Catalyst wall completely ruined us, because they had to third party. There was no other option for Disguised after that. Furia taking the fight up onto high ground, just the natural progression of the zones and fights made this game a whole lot better for Drop In Gaming than it had any right to be, and they took full advantage.
And the best part about that is Disguise do a great job of really trying to control the space and zoning against Drop-In to prevent that from happening. And the wall that comes out from Furia negates it completely. We're talking about the full black hole utilized in a moment that would have then become crucial had they not had utilized it in that specific exchange there. If Drop-In go down in that moment, if 1 or 2 members are eliminated, it's a Disguised win.
It really is, and I'm amazed with the way that these last four teams navigated this game, but I think that goes for a whole lot more squads than we had in game one this time around as well, because this was a very difficult zone to make your way into in a different way. With all the open ground, I think we saw a lot of teams unprepared for the fights that they would have to take in order to access the next rings.
I think a lot of the pacing regarding either getting to this zone in the late game or even in this early game where teams were really contesting for what felt like a lot of open space, most weren't on the same page of identity here. And as a result, that's why we saw a lot of these odd fights take place, or some of these weird moments before, of course, we finally had everything conclude to our climax once we introduced the wall POI directly.
Great play from, of course, Disguised there, and Furia, even on this push, took a really convincing fight up against GKS, wiping them out immediately. But great timing on the third party from Disguised unfortunately left them with little to show for it. After that, it was just the very true story of there being no real estate left, no position left to play from. And Drop In Gaming take full advantage of that. 6 kills, not a bad game for them. Gives them 18 points overall, but it still puts them well ahead of the rest of the lobby.
I was about to say, it's relatively even across the board here. 5 KP for Disguise to finish with 14-6 for Fury, even in their mainstay of the wall all game long. I do want to point out Oblivion, because they had a great time choking out a lot of these squads trying to fight their way in through the direct southern entrance of wall. And as a result, while they may not be placing high in the end, they still finished 4th overall.
Not bad for them. And actually, when we're thinking about those overall, let's take a look at the bottom half, because this is where game one gets flipped on its head and we start to justify our opinions of game one, going, yeah, it's a bit of an awkward zone. Yes, it's just one game, because teams like Moist, teams like DNO still did not make it up towards the top squads. Even 9 Lives, who had performed so exceptionally in our first game, now get reset down to the bottom half of the lobby. And it's the natural progression of today. It's why we play 6 games, because variation like this, that's the skill that you have to control.
Yeah, and it's something that we didn't even get to see, notably out of TSM there. A big moment between them, of course, and the likes of Sweet in the roster alongside Luminosity. Maybe potentially had it been a more direct fight, and maybe not the swipe to the side, maybe blowing through the pressure there of LG, we'd see a completely different world.
This was a really impressive game from Drop In Gaming. We are going to take a look at where they're sat now, and fortunately enough, after first game not being bad and second game being pretty great, they're at the top of the lobby, but they're joined by DNO and importantly LG, who, though they haven't won a game, have performed well in both, Zephyr.
They've done a great job there keeping this consistent, but I'd love to point out the little sneaking meat lovers that I don't think has really been shining out in our top 5 much, but with consistent moves has now postured into 4th.
They're finding kills, and yeah, as you say, they're importantly finding their way not into the actual endgame circles, but the ones right before. Meat lovers are so close to solving the formula, and again, it's only the first day from them. In fact, it's only the first 2 games. We're going to get another one, the final game on Stormpoint, coming up right after a break.
What an action-packed first 2 maps on Stormpoint for Group C's debut in year 4 of ALGS. I've found my way back onto the broadcast, and well, Zephyr is going to be analyzing a lot in the back, but Dia, you killed it on that cast. And I was kind of looking at the overall scoring jumping into map number 3. Drop-in Gaming and D&O, look, if you had asked me coming into this, especially when we were talking about the Titans that exist in the A and C matchup, we got the whole scout squad essentially slaughtering them down so far.
Yeah, and this is the best part about days like this and about the quality of competition that we have here in North America that a lot of people around the world talk about. Moist talked about it even in their pre-game interview, saying, yeah, we wanted to come here because we think it gives us the best shot at land. The big part of this is that even squads that are underestimated in their own region are still fully capable of finding wins, and that's not by accident, Tiff.
No, it's definitely not. So I'd be curious to see what is going to happen for the final matchup on Stormpoint. From my understanding, there were a little bit of communication issues and some things on the hands of the Legacy boys. So I'd like to kind of keep an eye on, in particular, Echo HQ and see if they will actually return to claim their supremacy over Moist Esports. But granted, man, watching Guild clutch up in map number 1 to kind of rein that back in, now we have to start to think about, I want to make an awkward call, Dia. Where do we think the zone is going to pull? I called Lightning Rod over for EMEA for the last game of Stormpoint, and I want an awkward cascade ending. You know, the one that wraps around the mountain and ends kind of in those buildings right there? That's what I want.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. And you said like, where is the zone gonna go? And I was like, I don't know. You tell me. You're the one that for some reason can guess the zone before we even see the dropship. For those of you who may have just managed to tune in today's North American broadcast, Tiff's done it multiple times today over in EMEA, and it's getting a little bit uncanny.
I was cooking a little bit, let me just tell you. I was taking one from Nasky's recipe book. But as we see that map rotation, DNO Gaming winning that Black Island North Pad-esque ending. And that's really interesting considering they start the game in Coastal Camp, one of the longest rotations that we would have witnessed from map number 1. But for Drop-In Gaming to essentially unseat one of the most wild end games of match number 2, I hadn't even seen that ending in months. But as we get locked and loaded, our players in the dropship, all eyes towards Echo HQ. Who will take over Echo?
This was a big question in our second game as well, but Legacy had decided then to give it up. Will they do so again? It looks like the answer is no, as everybody lands once again, and Moist, unfortunately, have to fight for their POI. Waltzy goes down, Jaguares claims the first knock. Everybody from Legacy still alive with the devotion charged up and ready to go. You do not want to challenge Yanya on this angle.
No, you don't. 40 bullets now down to 24, and ammo is looking a little bleak for this squad. Waiting on that conduit cooldown to kind of reinvigorate this squad. They've elected to slow heal, but for Guild and MT, let's keep an eye on it, because Guild looks like he wants to stick that res onto Waltzy, and if they get their numbers back up, you know, this will be really interesting for Legacy, and they get the res.
A nicely placed Arc Star as well. Guild does get sent immediately afterwards, as nobody could possibly hold the angle with him. Goes down, Azul finds a knock. Jaguares the second, and though the res was good, Moist do not survive the aftermath.
Legacy needed that, especially after being forced to kind of draw out that drop spot, head on over to Millage and make a relatively awkward rotation that they're not akin to, specifically having not practiced that in scrims. Now we'll be able to look towards that. But for the zones, oh my God, Dia, I'm done.
It might be. Once we see that second zone, I also like, oh no!
I was close. All right, you're welcome, Xset.
This, I mean, honestly, it still could be within like 50 meters of what you predicted. Like, we could end just south of Xset here, and it wouldn't even surprise me, Tiff.
I'm gonna start accept. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
You should start a Patreon. Like,
donate me for a little bit of manifestation luck, let me just tell you. But for Skirt, who's got Cenote, they've got crafting, they've got information, and Xset have already moved into this building. Now, I like this play for them, and you can immediately see that Oblivion see the same thing that Xset does, and they want to try and vie for a little bit of positioning here, because if the zone is going to pull off of this, it will be really atrocious considering just how open the spacing is around them.
I think what's really tough as well is that Xset boogied their way into zone with plenty of crafting mats, but no actual opportunity to craft. They did not get to make full use of that and really bolster themselves for a late game. Instead, they're choosing to play this open area, which I don't think is a mistake. It's just an unfortunate curse of where they're at right now. They do have control over the gravity cannon, and with Koifel alongside them, you can control this building, especially at short range, quite easily. My question will just be, is it going to be worth it?
I mean, that's going to be a really interesting question. Now, look, I was dabbling into some streams this week, and Hodsick was throwing up a lot of VOD reviews, so I was happy to see him back streaming. But in particularly, something that he was talking about were the priority rotations for those zones. And Cascade Falls is essentially priority to where this is going. You look towards those neighboring POIs, checkpoint, command center, wall, be able to walk right into this. So maybe that's exactly why as soon as they saw where this zone was going, they're like, nah, we're not gonna craft. We're just gonna farm with those mid-range akin to maybe the 30-30s and try to make that happen. But Sentinels, man, they're not gonna make it to zone.
Man, Sentinels is not having a good day. It is rough to see the way that they had to navigate the past two games, and in pretty different zones as well, but the early rotations are not working out for them. Teams perhaps a little too comfortable going over and pushing them, as North America is wont to do. It's a region that, yes, while we play well, we play respectfully, are also willing to push your boundaries a little bit.
As we see kind of this nice free cam of Cascades, we'd imagine a lot of teams are going to get caught up here on rotation, but for Nock and Xset, they're really putting a lot of pressure here on those teams that are looking to rotate forward from the north, more in particularly Furia and Evolution.
Furia's spot, a good one in terms of, as you said earlier, alluded to the concept of priority for them, making it just out of wall, makes it super easy for them to hold this high ground. Not a very common zone ending, but an active position in terms of taking advantage of squads that would leave wall late, that might have to rotate down from the north late, because you have all this high ground on them. And TSM, being the squad to rotate behind you, does present a really good opportunity for Furia to shut them down.
It does provide an opportunity to shut them down, but they could be vying for this ring console, playing for that next. They could stay here, kind of hit it again. You can see they already have that information in the mini map on the left-hand side. But what's more important to this, Dia, is when those zones kind of interact on one side, you can see they essentially overlap. It will likely mean that that zone can essentially pop and pull towards that direction. So if they can get that third zone information and make a more accurate call, we already know they're a really impressive fighting squad, with Verhulst putting up significant amounts of damage despite being in that anchoring position for TSM. I'd be curious to see where they move, because they're able to get the crafting here as well, and no one's really up left north to be able to chow them. Evolution's hit a massive negative rotation. Disguise still has not come out of North Pad.
The slow moves from our squads is going to give plenty of teams, as we saw from TSM, the opportunity to craft up, to get a better angle. And this week's crafting rotation is actually really generalist and beneficial. The 3X, of course, slotting nicely onto the 30-30, and with the SMG meta that we're in, having a stock, the backpack, and the helmet all incredibly useful. So TSM will have just been able to make use of that. Very few other squads actually nearly as privileged. Those coming from Cenote had the opportunity. Those coming from Mill and Devastated Coast, say Meat Lovers and Legacy perhaps, will also be able to get their loot to a similar position, you have to hope.
Ooh, so while we see the update on the ring, we're not actually getting the one that I was more specifically talking to, kind of closer to where Native Gaming has positioned themselves, but my eyes immediately go to Luminosity. Sweet's 200 IQ plus brain has called it exceptionally well. And you can see at Command Center, no one is rotating in behind him just yet. I know Oxygen's kind of working their way from the northern side, kind of just south of Zoo Station, and are making that play. And they could potentially put a threat to Luminosity and chow them for that beautiful positioning. But for DNO, currently sitting in third on the day, that rotation still coming through.
I do wonder, actually, since Oxygen are playing the high ground to the north of Command Center, I wonder whether they'll try and evac tower into the ring as opposed to trying to go through Command Center and fight teams like LG. Already, with Xset gone, their storm point has not looked good today, and I don't think Oxygen want to take that same risk because they have very little to lose.
But for Luminosity, checking in with them and really putting pressure on the teams around them, and more in particularly Oblivion. And I think it's really interesting that you bring up Oxygen again, because they land Command Center, extend out to that northern side, but there's really not a lot of places for them to gather information. So knowing that they can see now, they need to pull back throughout here. And well, sweet, the smorgasbord of cells and ultic cells is quite nice.
This is going to be critical in keeping them topped up as well. Normally, when you have something like a conduit, you're able to power yourself up over time, take a lot of poke, but the shield cells just make that even more true, even more active, especially when you need to evo as much. LG still wanting to make it over to red. It does look like there will be other squads encroaching on their territory. TSM likely to encounter LG if the zone continues to pull towards them, as both squads will be fighting for high ground control just as they did last game. These are nearly identical rotations from the TSM and LG squads.
Look, while we were watching the map, I'm pretty sure Xset was unseated from their building. Despite having that early rotation, they are gone.
Mm-hmm. Bit unlucky for them, but as we said, their storm point today just has not been up to par, especially with the standard that they set just last split in year 3.
9 Lives, though, having a pretty solid day and disguised, looking to chow them. Design on high ground here, utilizing probably the gravity lift from Horizon, trying to find a cheeky move, and a black hole goes out, coupled with some arc stars. Throw it down. The nade spam is real, and Design is just frying.
Giving up the high ground, though, without getting a knock. Bit risky from Disguise, as they've now lost a lot of autonomy on the low ground. Enemy tries to swing through the cat wall, but another Horizon ult will dissuade them. Gravity lift available if Disguise want to take the high ground, but they give up the fight. No knock, no nothing. 9 Lives barely even hurt after all of that.
Meanwhile, off-screen, Skirt has fallen. Dude's Night Out, taking them down. But this fight has been so expensive in terms of wasting and utilizing those abilities. So Disguise, you need to get in there and capitalize on it. Design takes a lot of damage, but they're finally able to get a knock onto Euryce. The trade comes through. But for Design and Enemy, without a conduit, they're still pushing head first into it.
Disguise go down, but this fight has meant so much more than that. 9 Lives, who were so close by, swoop on in for another kill. Evolution about to go down with just one member left, ratting it out, seeing how long they can survive. It's Budo up on height, unspotted by 9 Lives, and yet unlikely to survive.
Outspotted. The grav lift and the triple swing just completely eliminate them. But we turn back our sights over to Cascade Falls, drop-in gaming, flat native, GKS, and even Meat Lovers out into the distance. We know that rotation is going to come through, and it's only a matter of time before we're forced into a lot of the openings. But for Legacy, making their way out of that contest over towards Command Center, the big boss that they're gonna go up against Oxygen Esport. But after taking down the Titans of Moist, let me just tell you, they are probably feeling confident.
This is like, Oxygen has a position like being a piece of meat between wasabi and spicy mayo. It is just, it's too overwhelming. You can't actually enjoy the sandwich when it's got this amount of flavor on both sides. Legacy on one end, LG on the other. How are you expected to leave Command Center alive?
That's gonna be really tough, because I'd imagine if LG starts hearing some things, but they're still trying to show out and hold their space. But for now, Oxygen Esports are trying to gatekeep Legacy, and they've got positioning on their side. As they move forward, Vayne upgrades courtesy of damage over to a blue shield, but the opening is gonna fall. Aiden down and out. And right now, Legacy will hold the upper hand. Reeds, man, you have to reinforce that door. Good piercing spikes placement, but it's gonna be really tough to find some stabilization. The smoke and run from Vayne, he's back inside, but Legacy, they want more.
Vayne plays that almost perfectly as well. Defensive Catalyst Wall keeps them at bay. The res has gone off, likely a shield bat has gone off. Will the knock come through? Yes, it does. Knockdown shield is what Yanya ends up finding as Aiden gets full thirsted, and the two-person squad of Oxygen is left to run into the waiting arms of who, Tiff? It's LG on the other side.
Sweet, looking for some more KP, and they're gonna funnel out the tunnel, but not just quite yet.
Nice.
I do love that they've placed some piercing spikes behind them to try and fend off against Legacy. But it's really tough for me, right? You've got Luminosity on the outside and the ex-Luminosity roster now at Legacy on the inside. But for Drop-In Gaming, who have shown that they are a force to be reckoned with, let's go ahead and jump into a listen in with them and see how they take this engagement.
There's no team up here. Come up him.
I just walled it.
Nice. No, fuck, I died. I'm gonna run. Come down here. If you can.
Clear your lives. I might die. There's a crevice all the way down low right here.
Come here.
Knock guy right there?
Yeah, I see that. Just ignore him. This guy on the roof. Just play close in the building here. I'm healing.
Right there.
We need Thyrsis knock guy for loot.
I'll do it.
Red buffs on the left. I'm swinging back around to you.
Need. Did you have smoke?
No smoke for 10 seconds.
Careful. Fine. They might swing us off that. They know where I do.
Yeah.
Be careful. I'll shoot that 1 second.
They can't really swing us. We need to like somehow get up here.
You guys walk up the east side, bro. Like you guys like fuck.
Yeah, we need to run up like to here. No energy.
Yes. All the cells or no?
No all the cells.
Okay.
As a two-person squad, Drop-In Gaming have very limited options with 5 seconds left on the zone close. The zone close that is taking us up north. They're going to have to walk up alongside everyone else, including Native and Flash, to challenge TSM and LG.
Furia eliminate Oversleepers off screen, but we're here with Oblivion, and man, they were able to finish off 9 lives and break into the top 10, currently sitting 5th overall for the day. Is not a bad showing for this roster, but as we turn our sights towards that next zone, this is going to be a very tough rotation, which is going to make a lot of these resources, especially this Dark Veil, very vital.
Preemptive wall from Akimbo comes down just in time, but Arc gets fried behind them. It is still going to be a trade, but Akimbo low and Blinks are barely alive, the more descriptive term for that. Leaves Oblivion without a whole lot of options in the zone, still pushing them on forward. Another ult comes in, this time Horizon dooming them to die outside of the zone. Meat Lovers and Oblivion go down. TSM ult from above as they start pushing down onto Furia.
And they have such a nice position here and all the space to work with. They've got the trees, they've got the high grounds, they have a building, and they have a minute to whittle away at the rest of the lobby. Meanwhile, Legacy finally in that bloodbath of battle against Luminosity. This is where things get a little interesting. Jaguares himself has to clutch this up.
Nice!
And can he take down Luminosity? No! Sweet and Funk will be able to clean it up, immediately stick the res onto Slayer because there is a rotation that still needs to be had for them.
God, Sweet's HP is so low, and you gotta ask yourselves, if Legacy didn't make it past LG, how is it that Oxygen have a member out here? How is it that Vayne is still alive in the dead center of zone? Furia may not hold that title for much longer as they've got to hit a reset. Madness getting back into the game. Watson going to come next. The smokes now available from Madness, but LG are looking on this from above. Mobile respawn beacons are starting to drop in. TSM takes the eastern side of the, rather western side of the zone. And with a Kraber in hand, 3 shots left. Can TSM find themselves a game win in the first half?
Hey, they've got positioning, they've got zone, and a grab lift to high ground for Verholst and Hal. Will they be able to take out their next victims. They look like they've set their sights on to that lone member of Oxygen Esports, and Vayne will fall now into the top 3. Luminosity would like to keep on frying, and they set their sights on to Furia. The swing comes through and completely eviscerate them. This will open up TSM to be able to walk straight into this fight.
It's not even the first time we've been here this season. TSM versus LG once more. Last time it was DZ. And this time, TSM want to take that win with a numbers advantage, no less. Verhulst covers from the top with a flat line, no less. Wall's still available, but they don't use it to cut off the fight because they know it's a fight they can win. TSM keep pushing forward.
Verhulst trying to make a pathway in, and Funk goes down, and now TSM able to right the wrongs of the first 2 maps of Storm Point and get back to the top of the win.
There are so many rivalries in this game, and it feels like TSM is often on the other side of all of them, having been around for so long. But we saw them face DZ in the first match group day in a 3v3 for the end, and this time they do it to LG, winning it in our 3rd and final game on Storm Point.
I had a lot of questions too, because I was watching kind of the weapon utilization. You called it out. Reps had the Graber, just 3 bullets towards that end game, making that open ending kind of work for him. But Verhulst, who's most notably talked about kind of running double AR and loving it, and talking about the 30-30 in particular, especially when you're going to be playing Edge, that it doesn't really, you know, it's interesting. But when you play Zone, it makes sense. Well, Verhulst, I saw you. You had the 30-30 in your hand for that end game, and I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that it was relatively open. Let's run through some highlights of our map 3 on Storm Point.
It makes sense. I like your reasoning, and I am excited.
Reason, right?
I'm excited about taking a look back at this game because, like you said, even for teams like TSM, it played out pretty unexpectedly with Xset going down early and Disguised also taking a 2-sided fight, committing to the low ground when they could not commit onto height. I think we had a lot of teams that, unfortunately, died just via their own missteps, and it wasn't third parties, it wasn't even necessarily bad positions, it was unforced errors that took out a lot of teams on the way into this ring.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think that Disguised was a pure misstep, maybe a bad call, and sometimes you can right bad calls just by outgunning them, but unfortunately it just did not work in that situation. But this fight between Luminosity and Legacy, that got personal.
It really did, and LG committing onto the low ground is what ultimately gets them 2nd place. Not a bad finish, and while they fight it out with TSM for the 1st place, this was never going to be a fight that LG, starting at a disadvantage, were going to be able to win. And despite that, they still come out, I would say, largely on top. Picking up the kills just below them means that with the KP that they got, they still place above TSM on the leaderboard.
It's kind of interesting now that I look at it. Furia makes sense, right? They land wall, they're able to grab a ton of eliminations, but as we move through, a lot of those teams got caught up in those south areas, more specifically Cascade Falls. So relatively tough, but I have a feeling they'll bounce back. And Moist Esports, well, they've been racking up all the eliminations, and as we move over to World's Edge for them, for now, they will have a relatively easy journey from Overlook, so nice to see them not be contested.
Nine Lives also starting to creep up into the top 10. I think there's a chance for all these teams, but now, Stella, it's going to take place in a different arena.
I know, and we might see some of them change up exactly how they rotate. And we know Storm Point is a pretty big map, even with all the changes applied. So maybe some teams will have better luck rotating in. World's Edge is our beloved old map that we love to see. Zephyr, what do you make of the last few matches for day number 2?
Something that I really want to bring up is the sleeping giant that is Furia here. Now, notably, the reason why is because statistically, they're left behind in the dust due to their first game. They finished 18th with 0. But to note, even though this roster currently doesn't sit above the rest in terms of damage potential, their damage differentials are absurd. Both Madness and his Watson are currently leading the pack out of any other team in terms of putting damage out more than they're taking in, even if they aren't currently damage leaders. So the Furia influence is massive, and I think we've all begun to start to feel that, even if they aren't our winners yet.
All right. Well, Dia, go ahead and take a well-deserved break. We'll bring you back for a few matches later. For right now, we are going to be going into an interview with Graceful, who we didn't get to see in EMEA. Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine, thank you. I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. So excited to get your takes on everything that we're seeing today. So I asked this to Oirain in EMEA, but I'm very curious, for you as a pro player, what do you look for when you are watching these matches?
So mainly I'm looking for the split-second decision-making from teams and how pretty much I would play these games out depending on zone, right? So, you know, on Storm Point, I drop a command center with my team and we're looking, okay, how would our macro work this game? Some teams' macro might differ depending on zone pulls as well, because, you know, even though we call a wall ending, there's several different wall endings. There's the east side, top on the zipline house. There's the northeast side on the triple bins. There's the west one that we saw today. So depending on where the zone pulls, we're always planning our macro differently and then just looking to see how to adapt in the scenario.
I actually really love that. And it makes sense because, you know, you land command center. We just had that command center ending. You probably would have called it relatively quickly. But, you know, Graceful, I've really missed you since Champs. And I'm so excited. Not only are you playing, but you're also casting in Challenger Circuit. And I promise I'll ask a real question. How quickly would you have been able to identify that zone in map number 1? And how quick should you be able to try and at least put yourself in that position? Because you want to loot as quickly as possible and get on the road, especially if you are playing zone. But speaking of timings, talk to me a little bit about that.
First off, I miss you too. I miss everyone. Thank you again for having me. And secondly, it's a tough question. So it depends on how much time you give me to dissect it. So first and foremost, do you have beacon or not? If you have beacon, you can tell the zone, especially on Storm Point, immediately because it's super easy to predict. World's Edge is very different. Even if you have zone, the pulls are quite vast, right? If we're talking about looting speed, you said loot fast. There are times where you have to loot faster to have a prio in the zone. If you have a God spot, is what we call it. God spot meaning you end top 5 in the game based on placement alone. But normally, if let's just say for this command center zone from my team, if we play from command center and we did not have beacon, we would overloot because we can't predict it reliably, and you would take what we consider a power spot, which is what a lot of the teams fight for. So in this case, we would probably play front command, and then we would just AFK there, loot as much as we can, do spiders, and then just stay there forever, because if you can't reliably predict the zone, you might mess up your macro by over-rotating, which is not worth it. In that case, it's a lot better to not die on macro and just make sure that you're as stacked as you can be and take a proper 3v3. Essentially, at worst case scenario, you should take a fight, kill 3 people and die, because dying on macro with 0-0 is the absolute worst you can do. But I could make that a lot worse, but I think that's the top of it, yeah.
Graceful, you dig as deep as you can in terms of the Apex Legends macro iceberg. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to allow you to dig a little bit deeper here. We're going to take a look at our first 3 final rings here. And I'll start you off easy, of course, with, like you said, an easy prediction among the Black Island, where we saw DNO win.
Yeah, this one is very easy to say because they are obviously holding space very well, right? The other teams that have to walk in, so this what DNO did, I couldn't really see properly from the broadcast, but normally what teams do in this scenario is they do what we call leapfrogging. So even though a team might be on the edge and not actually where this island is right now, because playing here is timing based, meaning early on you get destroyed there, everybody sees you and you die, right? But the later and later it gets, the better it becomes. So you try to find that smooth timing of getting that wall down to where everybody else is focused on everything else that's happening. Mainly the fact that the zone is closing and other teams walking in, which just makes this completely free for them, which is why we saw on the opposite side of where they're standing, Moist, Meat, and other teams were fighting and they just came in to swoop and just grabbed everything. For this one, it's really good to actually talk about because mainly here, everybody would assume that the top roof team would win. But I would argue that nowadays, in today's meta, teams are improving so much that people don't think about this anymore. Back in the day, a year ago, top roof team would win every single time. Today, teams are looking so proactive, always hungry, looking to make plays. And this is from the teams of every team in ALGS. All 20 teams in this lobby are looking to be proactive and make plays now, which back then people didn't do. It was always the the slow zone phase time. But now the spot that most people would deem safe is actually the unsafe one, because everybody's looking to make the playmaking win, or the playmaking play essentially for the win, rather than play safe for consistent points and plays. Third one here, we can see right again, TSM is just holding a lot of space, looking to 3P the last fight. I would say this is textbook how you win easy games, is you clear your side. Once you have your side cleared, you try to play as much space as you can without overextending. Once you notice that, if you can get it down, or if you just clean up the 3P for some free kills, you just make sure that you death ball, which is what we see in the end by TSM here. At first they're poking, they notice that they're weakened, or only 2 up. So they start by spreading out, and at the end right here you can see triple slide forward, which is what we call death ball or holding hands. You make sure that you can all tank damage and put out as much damage as you can. It's pretty much impossible for TSM to lose this scenario, which is they closed the game really well, and they played exactly how you should be playing it.
God, Graceful, you are so good. Let me just tell you, I don't know anything about LAN or where it is, but look, if you're not playing it, I need you with us. And I think you called it really strong, especially on map number 2 with the drop-in gaming win. That would have been the Watson team back in the day up on the roof, but the changes and the new everything, well, talk to me about this. Series results are here, and well, LG, they're at the top.
Yeah, so I think teams, like we've seen a few teams at the top that people probably didn't expect. Let's just say, Oblivion dropping gaming looking really strong. Dino has always been considered strong, but not really been consistent. Outside of that, all the consistent teams are up there, LG, Furia, TSM. I'm saying LG mainly because of Sweet, of course. And people, the main reason why we always say these top teams to always keep consistently performing is because they are they're cold in the moment, and they know when to do this split-second decision making, and if they are not scared to make mistakes. And I feel like this is what makes them veterans, is that they know we have to full commit, and that's just the result. It is what it is. That's why we VOD review, right? Whereas a lot of the teams that are a little bit scared or not as proactive, that's usually what cost them. And I can say that firsthand. I've played LANs, and I've made decisions that made really good results, and I've made some where I've been second guessing myself, and it becomes worse. A lot of the time, if you're just 3 Pepegas pushing it together, you're going to have better scenarios than the perfect plan that's just a little bit off timing. Maybe one guy pushed ahead of the other 2, or, a 2-1 split when it should have been just a triple hold hands and we win as Pepegas, So the veterans are showing up strong. I think they're really being consistent because they are committing to each other. They trust one another, and that's what scrims are for. But scrims are a little bit hard to take the results from because 10 teams circle 1, But in Pro League matches, we're going to have a lot more teams, and here's where you can really see people's backbone and consistency and all their previous results and everything. They really help them.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about some controversial or spicy takes that we have here. So we're going to talk about the different legends and the meta picks here, because it seems like people haven't really found the perfect team comp yet. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think that the perfect meta would be for this season?
So right now, it's really hard to not justify playing Bang and Cat, I would say. Bang and Cat are really that strong because they just add everything, and they're insanely good at it, and they're so versatile. You can play Edge, you can play Zone, you can play Hybrid, depending on your POI. The one that's the most controversial is the 3rd slot, which is right now a lot of people. Obviously, Horizon is always going to be there because her utility, with her Q being the only ability in the whole game. That's not an ultimate that's on around each 20-second cooldown, depending on gold helmet and whatnot, to add verticality to your team, and she's just a super fast playmaking character. She fits aggressive team comps, teams, and if they have a super shiny fragger that's able to make plays on their own, Horizon fits them more. Now on the opposite side, we're talking about Conduit, where for the teams that don't have this insane god tier fragger, and or teams that are maybe a little bit more sloppy, they have more leeway and space with Conduit, which is why we see so much Conduit now, because she's almost like a band-aid fix for team fighting, because of you're able to reset a lot easier and you can sustain a lot. And not only that, sometimes when teams make plays on you and they crack you and then they try to make a push of it, they don't, people still aren't that used to Conduit Q. And if you push and you're not ready for that Conduit Q, being able to reset that fast, you can get immediately punished. So Conduit actually, I think, is probably the best for teams that haven't really made the fundamental core roles on the team yet. If you're trying a lot of people, or if you still haven't decided properly yet. And yeah, as we can see here as well, Bangalore and Catches, the pick rate is through the roof, right? Horizon's still really, really good. Conduit is up there now. I think it's also maybe a lot of bit of, I think she isn't fine-tuned yet. I think Conduit ability Q specifically is really strong. The fact that it can go through walls. But for now, she's going to stay quite a high pick rate, I think, for a lot of teams. But that third slot, like I said, could always be mixed up. And in NA, we see Fuse as well. This is obviously mainly picked on World's Edge because it's a small map. And you can bully teams playing smaller spaces, such as, trucks and smaller houses like World's Edge has, more competitively to Stormpoint, which is a lot of open space. But I think third slot picks could be a lot. But Banging Cat, too strong.
Graceful, it is insane having you here in our halftime section because none of us can even ask the questions because you are 2 steps ahead of us. You are answering them before we even get them out of our mouths. You continue to astound me. You are above a professional. You are an expert.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry as well.
God, don't apologize for that, Graceful.
Why are you sorry? You are living up to your
giving
name,
you guys
Graceful.
a chance to
Thank
talk.
you so much.
We don't need it. We have you. No, just kidding.
All right, thank you so much to Graceful for sharing those insights with us. Just as a reminder, the first Challenger Circuit starts February 3rd for North America, and registration is open now until January 31st. You can go to you can go to battlefy.com/ALGS to sign up and see if you've got what it takes to enter to year 4 of the ALGS. Now I'm going to hand it over to Tiff and Zephyr to lead us into game number 4, the first one on World's Edge, where I'm hoping we might see some Fuse.
Thank you so much, Stella. We did have Fuse in EMEA, but for me, the only thing that I care about moving on over to World's Edge is the Luminosity skirt contest. Now, Zephyr, I'm sure you've been keeping apprised of that situation over at Lava Fissure throughout the week, and it's been really, really interesting considering it's been very back and forth. And at one point in time, I think I saw Alb hit the nastiest hipfire Sentinel shot, and I want to see it happen again.
The big thing that I'll be watching here right off of the bat is just in terms of the momentum of today. Luminosity already right on the rip here, dead set in center, finding early blue and set up for a double peek here with Slayers and Funk. Trained eyes, double cracks found here. I mean, this is the way you start off a contest.
Radiant transfer coming through, trying to get Slayer and Funk back up to fighting potential. And, well, this one's a little interesting. We've seen a lot of people vie. Specifically, it's going to be Skirt that look for those donut-esque buildings, try to find a gun. But for LG, they have forced Skirt into a building and are essentially manipulating this contest.
Oh, pressure now on the interior here. And of course, Slayers, of course, on that Catalyst as well, can also dictate the presence of how they play this on the doorways here. Still, tempering their time, tempering their approach. Luminosity has to make a decision at some point. They're not a team that wants to be slowed out on the rotate.
And they don't want to go down either. They're leading the charge of the day with 39 points. And contesting on the last 3 maps of the day for World's Edge, you cannot lose any points. We want the momentum moving forward. And at this point, essentially camping on top of Skirt, who are sitting on 2 whites and a blue. What will Luminosity do? I wonder if they just baited that smoke to say, hey, we left, and now they're going silent.
Dead silent. Bit more than just dead silence in Apex.
Now, I'm really curious if we do have any listen-ins available because I really want to hear either what's going on in the minds of Sweet or what's going on in the minds of Alb.
Well, In the end, it is going to be the actual let go here from Luminosity, which I appreciate, right on the tail end of that round one starting to close here. And I think this is appropriate because, as I was saying earlier, this is a team that has dictated their success by getting to the positions that count early on here. Obviously, you want to come out on top of a 3-piece KP win on a contest, but that initial crack and even the slight mistake and good thinking with the, tricky smoke, I mean, it isn't enough. Luminosity knows that there's better points to be had by playing this one out.
All right, so we're going to basically just call it a wash. Neither team essentially wins. It's just effectively a stalemate, but I love the fact that Scurry just snakes out and tries to put more damage on. And I can also say that I'm really grateful that we get Awakening's real name. I think he's been running as Randy throughout scrims, and it throws me off a little bit.
That's okay. I can be a Randy. You can be a Randy. We're all Randys deep inside.
Why does that sound like a TV show? We're all Randys here today. But for our zones, man, we had a lot of zones very similar to this in the EMEA region. So look where the positionings are already to be had. We talked about those priority rotations, looking for power spots that Graceful was talking about. And, well, Lava Siphon has that ring console, which we know Verhulst effectively likely hit and immediately made a play for Dome. They have a ring console there as well, which will give them more accurate information. But a lot of our teams have already moved in.
Yeah, most of these teams, notably TSM, Legacy, and 9 Lives, probably in the best positions to be making these impacts when we start to talk about rotations towards the exterior of Dome here. Granted, still could be finding its way direct into this POI, but that slight pull back over towards the southern edge leads me to believe that this one might be catering out towards things like mini Dome here, hence TSM's position. They don't want to opt for space on the interior where they're inevitably going to be caught out by the stack of other rotating squads. Instead, they're going to hold these edges out, clear out their backside, and then slow walk in for that final piece of height before mini Dome is valuable.
Well, for Skirt, after effectively the stalemate, they've set their sights onto over Sleepers and Charmander, effectively done and dusted from the lobby, and this Dark Veil was expended to make sure they could grab the loot from Charmander before pushing out through the choke and looking for the rest of the squad.
Now, notably, this is a major hillside here. It's very likely that we'll be seeing the complete, not recovery, but at least escape of the likes of Sleepers here if they're continuing to foot this one out. For Skirt, though, hey, they're more than happy. They don't quite get the success of that first wipe, and instead are led astray by the sounds of the beasts above, the flying wings of Xset, who are happily taking an evac for free. That's not even the ones they were touching toe-to-toe here moments ago. I don't even think they know that.
Well, Xset have made their way just a little bit closer into ring number 1, coming in 16th place overall on the day, effectively grabbing another evac tower to get them through Monument and maybe over into the choke. Now you start to look at where you can see Dude's Night Out kind of in that Harvester area. Which way will Xset choose to go? And the calls come through, and they're moving on more effectively towards that Lava Siphon-esque area.
I'll tell you what, I do like this from Xset, but they're going to have a rude awakening here, especially given their position forces them to start so far and away out there in trials. They're moving just as fast as you would think they'd play into zone, but speaking of moving fast, bullets move faster, and Akimbo's surely finding that out.
We know Disguised really strong on World's Edge, and well, they've already got a knock onto one, and now the hunt ensues. They want to find the other two, and moving on into this tunnel space, the hipfire with the 30-30 reigns supreme on the second. But now, like a cat playing with a mouse, and Arcology done and dusted as well.
Can you really call it a hunt if they make it look that easy? It feels like bullying to a certain degree. I don't know what bullying in a hunt would be considered.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure, but Skies pick up another, currently sitting in 9th for the day, wanting to move up the leaderboard. I can imagine that squad is not going to be happy with that positioning, considering how dominating they were looking in scrims. But Graceful said it himself, scrims, man, it's really hard to justify and take what you see there. It's kind of all about just learning, trying out different things, limit testing, and see what works in your group matchups. But for Sentinels, this is really interesting. We know that Dia is an avid Rampart enjoyer, but this legend composition, Loba, Rampart, Bang.
This is something that needs to have zone presence. This just doesn't work. Talk about rotation ability. They don't have it here. They have no closing gap, and the bang is the only bit of safety they truly get, especially when those walls are down here. And here's my thing to look at. They're nowhere close to where they need to be. This hillside is incredibly punishing, and while yes, you can extend a shield, a wall all day long here, if you can't close the gap to get down towards that south side where we'll be seeing the end of the zone, you're just going to have teams run up on you before you can ever make things like the Rampart Loba combo work.
Oh, that's so interesting, let me just tell you. But for XSET, as we follow their journey, they've made it over on towards Bridge, and I do enjoy this positioning, but it's very much akin to what we were witnessing from Aurora's rotation on World's Edge, and they were talking about how they weren't happy with their World's Edge performance, and Aurora has played from this building. As XSET walks into it, I start to think they don't have that next ring information. They're going to have to go just a little bit further, and I'm a little nervous for them.
It's not particularly the worst spot to be here, but knowing that our zone is catering up over towards the southern side of the map here for XSET, they've got two options, whether it be into the basin walls themselves of something like Sentinels or through the cave system. Either side, they're going to have to end up taking a fight, especially if they don't have evacs available. And I'll tell you what, Diff, I'm pretty sure other than 9 lives here, Legacy and TSM, I'm pretty sure there's probably other squads who've also contested for these lovely spots of real estate.
Just kind of like perusing our free cam, looking at positioning, and XSET have moved out into the building away towards the tunnel. Knock is just looking for some information, especially alongside Koi. Now, Koiful has had kind of one of the most interesting journeys joining that XSET roster, providing a lot of value in terms of fragging potential, and with Knock on the bang, able to smoke and use the digi to try and offset and take a kind of stealth approach to that, but they're effectively going to go back towards where fun is on that conduit. Now, some things to be said about the conduit radiant transfer. I know Graceful was talking about how interesting it is that it can go through walls. Well, it can go through walls, but they have to be within 50 meters. So Koiful and Knock being in this tunnel aren't going to effectively be able to benefit from that radiant transfer.
One big thing to note here is that Flat also on the other side of things has the conduit to play with as well. So taking a fight in this exchange does them no benefits in terms of the composition that they're currently working with, right? A conduit v conduit is a lot of the mathematics that teams are taking into account here when they talk about getting those early cracks, getting those early walk-ins, and maybe they even found that information out poking into the cave and now has forced them to opt for the hillside instead.
Meat Lovers hitting that evac. You can see they've got Eggshell kind of pinged in the distance. They want to play off that. I believe it should be free for now. They make their way into the RV. Now, this is something really interesting to be said. A1's on the Valk. Now, typically teams that play from RVs will have a Catalyst or a Watson. Well, Meat Lovers, they have neither.
And for an aggressive squad getting out there on the edge, the fact that they drop off some of that major taking ability compared to what other aggressive comps we're seeing for the Valkyrie instead goes to show what they might be looking to take advantage with. First Skirt here, trying to go for the push on the opposite side. Instead, it'll be a grab lift that pressures them back in a ways. As a result, going to dissuade or at least extend some time here. Might have lost their targeting.
They're effectively mirroring XSET by maybe a minute. XSET have already moved into potentially where Sentinels was holding with that Rampart, but Skirt needs to make a move and make a move soon with Oversleeper's JP, unfortunately getting caught amongst a lot of them. Moist making a play for their rotation as well. Now, granted, they were in Big Mod, moved into stacks, potentially got some information or are just kind of playing off whatever, but they're rotating back north, maybe swinging around, and for GKS, they're still in ring and we're gonna do.
Yeah, for Moist here, it is success, at least for now, and notably most of the squads, at least the smart ones outside of stacks here, should have likely rotated over towards that north side, so there might be a lot more spaces than you could potentially think. Granted, on their way up, the Meat Lovers will show them what they're worth there if they try to contest for similar positioning. For Skirt, they lack answers right now. We look towards an evac to be their launch into the potential play, but with 18 squads remaining and many of these spots we've discussed already, we know for a fact for Skirt, it won't come without a fight.
And Here we go, Skirt making their way towards that infamous building I was mentioning earlier. With that next zone information, as Ring 3 closes, I'd be more curious to see where it is moving. GKS, I was asking, hey, what were they gonna do? Well, they're gonna die by the hands of Moist, looking for more KP and Skirt. They've set their sights forward, and that's gonna be DNO trying to make a play.
A solid knock drop down, longbow from distance. They're going to extend out the Dark Veil to cover this rotation from caves, especially if anyone's looking for similar positioning. For DNO off of this drop, they know they found one, so already at a numbers advantage, a gold knockdown will be what they have to crash through here. But with bullets galore, they're able to berate it.
Oxygen Esports LG eliminated elsewhere as well. But for this squad who keeps on that rotation, one member of DNO was able to get out. Now you can see that Disguised wants a piece of this, and they have destroyed DNO, and they are setting their sights onto Skirt, constantly berating them with those thermites, just looking for an opening here. We look to it, we've got a digi threat and things can get spicy, but Native Gaming will be slown by Timmy as well.
Caught from behind, but immediately giving away that position. Exit from above. Take advantage. It will cost the life of Nocturnal there. Koi just barely pulling out recovery, but seeing their moment to strike. Skirt start to walk their way up the hill, and Furia pinch from the other side.
We knew Sentinels wasn't playing from a very powerful position, and they will fall off screen as well. But for Furia, who have been making so many well-timed plays here, they look to capitalize on that. Keon able to get back to his Watson and Madness. I can only imagine what Madness is sounding like, trying to rein Keon back in, the reposition around this rock, and you look towards their loot. We need a little bit more energy, but Keon electing to play a little bit of that Verhulst double AR meta.
It's something that gives them the advantage, especially in the matchup directly against things like that Conduit, having that extra clip size and damage to work with. For Disguise, though, they find little answers here in terms of this next move up. While Furia have left them in the dust, the remnants of Skirt are more than happy to pick up the KP that beat. But for Alvin Scurry, the minute they crest the upper line of this hill, they are shot back by Furia, making their reappearance.
The fact that they're able to somewhat stabilize behind that Dark Veil and get their shields back up as we have to keep rotating. The ring is at their back, and his Watson able to get that moving. Disguised eliminated, and we power forward. Skirt not able to hit their rotation as well, and Furia turns the tides, starts destroying so many other teams. It's gonna be Drop-In Gaming and Flat. Moist as well trying to find their way in. The Great Migration is upon us.
I can't believe Furia have found themselves a position, shot from both angles off of a good Dark Veil, but it's finally this, breaching the interior of Dome, that comes to bite them. Legacy from inside and from the outside, a final wipe that sends them home in 8th. For Legacy, they know they've got one more roster out there that they could take advantage of, but this lobby has been decimated off of a Dome pull.
This is really tough, but beautiful free cam shot to set it up. 9 lives in the back buildings. Legacy will have to move just a little bit, but not before they're done.
Gorgeous.
Wreaking havoc onto Flat. So set our sights into that next zone. There was a ring console the entire time over there. So for the teams that had controller legends inside with most effectively a lot of cats in the lobby, they would be able to accurately predict where it was going the entire time. Meat lovers who took that rotation, played from RV, and essentially walked in on the backside. They're poised to have a solid positioning, but only with Moist Esports, depending on where they're going to enter the zone.
It's a tough decision for Moist here, but optimally they probably are likely to fight the back end there, and as a result might stunt the growth or power potential of Meat Lovers. For 9 lives, I'm curious to see what kind of height they can play above the silos that they're currently set upon. And for TSM, holding that building out to the very last moment and waiting to strike is something I'll be looking for here. For Evolution Legacy, they might be starting fights early.
Starting fights early, but Moist answering the questions that we needed. We've seen people play from the silos and effectively using the Radiant transfer to get back up to full health, but here come the Vert nades. We saw them be so powerful and early on, and this is going to be the toughest positions to play and stay out of those sight lines of the neighboring 3030s. Legacy still trying to get into zone and being forced into essentially Evolution, but Meat with the Sentinel tech, the Landlord breaking picking apart the squad, and Yanya able to stay alive, but that zone is ticking away at the white health, and you don't have much cover to work with here.
For Yanya, the back of the zone just barely pushes him out of this source of cover, and instead shot out again. Like you said, a Sentinel from Tech seals the deal and brings us down to our final 3. 9 lives, TSM, Moist here above, and actually Meat Lovers still over on the opposite side.
It's going to be a really interesting game now, down to the final 4 squads. TSM entered this match 16 points out of first place. That was held by Luminosity, none of which we see right now. They did not make it over towards Dome. So if TSM can put up enough numbers, they can move up the leaderboard. But 9 lives as well from the preseason qualifiers would like their chance to be able to do the same.
Now, something to note here is in comparison to silo endings that we've seen in the past, this one comes alongside a heavy precedent of Horizon here. These grav lifts all currently available to make the switch up and play for similar positioning up towards something like Moist whenever they need to. For 9 lives are kind of starting to look there with the extent of their own grav lift, but they know the minute they pressure for that same angle, Moist are more than ready to put damage down where it counts. It's going to come down to a split-second decision here among the teams. See who comes out, well, quite literally on top.
I'm having deja vu looking at this zone with teams in either buildings, a team on silo, and that was a good shout to talk about the verticality from Horizon, utilizing that grav lift that will be available. But with an amped up Sentinel, Tech is just looking for any angle that he can to whittle down the numbers on the neighboring teams.
Oh, and Meat don't have Horizon. That's going to be a big one here, especially on the low ground, and how they can foot this one forward, knowing that they can't even play for a majority of the space that leads dominantly. Oh, if you're dropping a Valk ultimate this late in the zone, you deserve to be headshot, dropped, and ended fourth.
What about evac?
All right, evac. I'll take evac.
I'm trying here. You're gonna like put up a big target on your back, and there's not really a lot of time.
It's gonna be really funny.
Whoa. Can we talk about Guild's use of the piercing spikes on the other silo?
This is smart. In the end, they're going to expend that grab lift on the exterior of the door. That's going to really punish TSM, but they've got great responses with a dark veil of their own to give them minute, minimal, but effective cover there. Barely the angles are found to send reps home, but Verholst and Hal just able to stay a little bit alive.
Reps has fallen. That Arc Star, it connects thanks to Awans. But for Moist, the high ground, it can be a curse, it can be a blessing. And Skynades, well, they're coming through. So we need to look towards MT on the conduit. The Radiant transfer comes through, and now they just start slaughtering. Evan just gets annihilated from the grav lift. TSM out, Meat Lovers out, and Moist, they want a win, and they get it. We were talking about the transition from APAC South over to North America, bringing in Guild. We heard from Waltzy at the top of the show, and this has got to feel good.
For Moist here, taking dominant control of the finish of that zone, notably a roster who come out from the skies above, an evac to give them that position, and they hold on to it the entire time. No slipping, no falling, no diving, even toughing out the entire wealth of vert nades that came through on their end. You got to attribute a little bit of that to, yes, great decision making for the macro placement, but also the conduit who continues to help this roster thrive.
Yeah, it's really interesting because immediately upon landing on the silos, they throw down the Radiant transfer. The nades come up, doesn't matter. There's like essentially 3 phases to Conduit's Q, and throughout that first phase, it's about 8 seconds, and that's the health regen phase. And yes, it takes time. You have to be able to not take damage for like 2 seconds to make it work. But regardless, they were able to stabilize and hold the high ground. I talked about it being a curse and a blessing. Well, for Moist, it was a blessing. So I'd love to see some of those highlights because we had some really interesting moments, effectively a lot of those rotations in that mid map trying to get down towards Dome.
especially because in that early game, the rotation for Circle was, I would say, even slightly misleading with a lot of the presence towards the mini dome rather than dome direct. As a result, you actually didn't see that many teams playing for the POI itself. A lot of squads still trying to contest the outskirts, even though it wasn't available. It was those mega rotations at the end that pretty much eliminated the entirety of the lobby, leaving just a handful of 5 or 6 squads.
I really loved what we saw from Skirt there. It's a shame they just kind of got held up in that congestion. Sentinels, though, the positioning that they played from, just not going to be able to live that much. But ow, bro, that Nemesis goes hard, and his Watson looking good as well. But I'm really shocked that Furia was able to live as long as they did here.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about in terms of this final rotation, but in the midst of all that, Furia were able to truly, well, I'd say dine in terms of these other rosters, picking up KP galore from above there and likely keeping themselves high up on those standings on their first appearances. But of course, here in the end game, Moist, excellent from the Radiant transfers to the piercing spikes, not only above on the silos, but down below to punish these rosters, were putting out damage before they were even present.
Look, they were able to hit 7 eliminations going into that final fight. I see 9 there. They get a win. The question is, were they able to unseat Luminosity, a 24-point game? That's what you'd like to see, especially on the first map of World's Edge. But 9 Lives, coming from the preseason qualifier, Dio is talking a lot about them. I know they weren't able to effectively get any eliminations during that game, but they're just kind of warming up to the Pro League. And you think about their positioning, if they're able to get second based on that, look, they are going to fit right in. It's only a matter of time.
And when we talk about aggression, the points continue to represent here for Furia and Skirt both. 8 and 7 KP, 15 or a fourth of our lobby picked up by them to not only push them past their relatively meek placements, but put them there on the top 5 of the board after that game alone.
As we jump on over to the second half of this Disguised, they took a lot of really interesting engagements on their rotational path, but unfortunately got caught out in what I effectively called the Great Migration. Exit, their choice of rotation, very similar to Aurora, and it's really tough to get out of that area of World's Edge with it effectively being so open. And despite Native dropping in 14th, they were able to pick up 4 eliminations. So overall, not necessarily a bad game from them.
No, but a bad game for one roster in particular there, Luminosity with just 1 point. As we take a look at the comparison between Moist and 9 Lives, the big thing that stands out to me is the damage. Moist absolutely ballooning what already was an incredibly decisive lead as a team here. They're the first team to breach 5 digits on the damage dealt at 11,000 currently, with the second highest damage differential at 2,225, only bested by the likes of Furia.
Zephyr, you sound like you're on ApexLegendStatus.com, low-key.
I have no idea, but huge shout out to that data site because it's very relevant and useful.
As we look at the series results, Moist Esports were able to trump LG for the top, but Drop In Gaming also in the midst, just by 1 point differential between the squad. At this point, A and C is a bloodbath, and it's effectively anyone's game. When you look at this, Zephyr, I just need some final thoughts.
I'll tell you what, in terms of the points that remain here for our final 2 matches, this next game is going to become absolutely crucial, especially for the top 6 or at least 7 to 8 on the board. One major win, like we've seen from all of these teams in their own unique ways, will be enough to potentially keep them safe going into our final match of the day.
Well, thank you so much, Zephyr. It's been a pleasure casting with you and having you on the broadcast, but we are going to cut to a quick break and then we'll get Dia back in here. So I'll see you guys on the other side because we've got more World's Edge action in store for you. Well, the first game on World's Edge for North America was really spicy, Dia. But as we move on to the final 2 maps of the day, welcome back. I'm curious to hear your thoughts of what you thought about that prior map before we get set for another interesting contest.
I'll tell you what, Tiff, I thought it was uncanny that we got another very similar zone to the EMEA zones today, pulling again towards the south side. I did enjoy the Rampart. It did hurt me to see her positioned as such. I don't think Sentinels themselves feel like they have a lot of power, and I think after watching that game, it doesn't look like it's getting a whole lot better today.
Wow, that was dark. I mean, typical, I understand, but at that point, if you're Sentinels, what kind of changes do you need to make? Well, we've got this map rotation up. You can see historically, if you just joined into the main broadcast, these are your 4 different map winners throughout A and C. But Sentinels, yeah, you're right. They're not there, and they're having a relatively tough day.
Really struggling with the perhaps loot that they're getting off of drop, and then competing with other conduit teams, maybe not having the team fights that RKN is used to, or the positions, like they're getting rotated on faster. Whatever it is, Sentinels have not caught up to the rest of the meta and the way that other teams are playing right now, and it's hurting them, at least in the short term. Perhaps long term they'll be able to find an adjustment and a legend, but right now I don't think that simple legend picks are going to solve their problems.
That's true, and we have an 8-week regular season, so plenty of time to kind of get into it, right? You've just got to drop in, figure out what you want, what works best for you. Maybe it's not Loba, Rampart, but for the other teams that are effectively utilizing that Bang Cat. And whether they're slotting in something unique or like Horizon or Conduit for that third, it's working for them. But for our final 2 maps of the day, Dia, things have got to show out. We have one of the closest scoring series that I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, this has been a very difficult day to take away by a mile, and it's in contrast to what we saw in EMEA, where our winners of the matches were also putting up these massive score lines. Here, every inch matters, and the leaderboards are changing so much game by game. As we drop into World's Edge once again, we are taking the south to north route, and teams like Furia landing over by Tree with a Crafter will have the extra time to be able to hit that and get their resources all nice and topped up. TSM going to be the beneficiaries of that as well, but we all knew this was going to happen. LG fight once again for their home in Lava Fissure.
They immediately drop onto the donut building in Lava Fissure and Slayer, something that's really smart for them to immediately reinforce the door behind them. And now we move forward throughout these essential catwalks. Now, something that we've seen throughout scrims is effectively missing the catwalks. Well, now we're going to be missing Scurry.
Nice way for Funk to drop down as well. That was just some nasty play with the triple take. Even interrupts the res. Waiting, buying time for the rest of the team to come over. You've got Sweet coming in from above. This duo is dusted as Entry with the triple take takes down another, and Skirt have just 1 member left. 1 member that should be running for the hills.
That's really interesting, because sometimes when you see these Lava Fissure contests, and I know you think to EMEA, we've seen this prior, we've seen this happen even in North America. You run north, but we know that someone is going to be getting all the loot in trials, so Alb is going to effectively have to manage that, and you actually get the audio cue that it is happening.
Skirt, or rather, I should just refer to them as Abralele now, because that's the only player left. Will likely have to play through the north to avoid exit, which means that you're not only a rat, but you're late rotating into a zone that otherwise is fantastic for Lava Fissure, because let's not forget, Lava Fissure also inherits, in most cases, the loot from Mirage à Trois, which puts this incredible path right into the zone, laid out perfectly for LG, to say nothing of the fact that they have 2 KP at least to go along with it. For the rest of our teams, rotating into and around Harvester, it is going to be a bit of a difficult decision. Do you try and play out of Harvester or the lines over by Tree for a late move in and being able to pick which side of the mountain you're on? Or do you decide, hey, we're going thermal, or hey, we're going bridge?
Well, for Oxygen, they're going through tunnel. They've got the ring information. They know effectively where they would like to position themselves, but a really slow start to this match day showing for them. starting out in 16th place. Now, granted, because the points disparity is relatively close throughout our entire lobby, one good game could effectively bolster them into maybe a top 5 position. We did get a look at that ring and kind of where it is pulling towards, and I saw a bit of thermal station in it. So for Disguise to land there, well, they're going to have relatively easy journey, but Disguise don't necessarily play heavy zone.
No, they've honestly mixed things up quite a bit through today's games, but none of them have been Disguised sitting in center ring. A lot of time they will wait until zones 3 or 4, pick a position and run for it. The exception to that, of course, being in our first couple of games where they tried to play the nut buildings really early on, and I think that's a big reason why they're not doing it anymore, because it did not go well.
Did not go well, but we still have all 20 squads in the lobby despite LG effectively winning that contest. I'd be curious to see what Alb is be able to do. There was crafting in Skyhook, and I can only imagine maybe he's just looking to loot up on Med's northern side and effectively try. I wasn't sure if he was able to get banners, but I think they do run conduit for the contest and should be able to craft.
It's always a possibility as teams like Drop In Gaming make their way into Thermal. The game plan pretty darn clear from here. You can sit in these buildings likely until the end of the game, as it is a very common end zone for Drop In to take advantage of, to say nothing of their shield cells, of which they have plenty, and a Watson on top of that. Right now, you want to poke, get your evos up, and largely not expose yourselves to too much risk, because at the moment, you are setting yourself up for an end game. That's what this position, as inactive as it can be, is meant to do.
I don't think Drop-In Gaming gets enough love. So I would really love to talk about them for a minute, especially when they're kind of positioning themselves for that end game and effectively going AFK per Graceful's terms on that beautiful halftime show that we had him on. Crook, you know, he's really been a staple in the competitive scene. He's played alongside Atlanta Premier, but for Furia, you mentioned it was going to be tough making it through Harvester, but well, they found crafting, they smoke it out, and they're just kind of lurking, looking to make sure no one is here.
I was surprised we were considering a wall, but with the shields as they are, Watson cannot take any risks on being shot off of this crafter. So it'll be up to Oversleepers to really press the issue should they decide that it's necessary. Bottery with the gold shield already starting to move through the center of Harvester. Well, JP, the oldest mouse and keyboard player in the ALGS, stands on the other side. White shields, and at 31 years old, I want to see how this old and young pairing of JP and Vatari goes throughout today's games on World's Edge.
Ooh, we get a check in with that zone and kind of where it's going. While it's closing, we'll effectively get to see that next pop. Disguise still in thermal station, but LG poised to take the choke. So they rotate throughout Lava Fissure. You're right, go through Mirage Etoile and drop down playing that side, but their backside effectively clear unless DNO decide to negative rotate outside of zone. I don't anticipate that, but something to keep an eye on. For Meat Lovers, the evac tower reigning true and looking to head themselves over maybe to Lava Siphon.
It looks like, honestly, that wouldn't be a bad idea because Lava Siphon has crafting. There's also, note the single member of Meat Lovers dipping out towards Big Mod, the chance to get a zone read off of this, which will allow the rest of Meat Lovers to really effectively predict where the ring is, as opposed to, say, teams like Native Gaming, who have had to sit on the outside by Harvester and choose to play the fence line instead. We actually get a look at them right now as TSM should be finding themselves encountering Native soon. Both of these squads needing to choose one direction to make their way into Thermal. Neither one particularly pleasant, as both are uphill battles.
Well, for TSM, who have found themselves in 6, and they were able to net themselves one win on Storm Point, you know they're not necessarily going to be happy with that. I feel like TSM will only be happy if it's win, 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 similar to what Oirein was saying in EMEA.
Yeah, and that's honestly, that's exactly what happens when you win as much as TSM have in their careers. To not be picking up victories on these regular season match days should, by all accounts, feel like a disappointment to them, especially when they have this amount of expectation on their shoulders. They're playing so slow, so cautiously right now because they've already fallen significantly behind the expectations that a lot of people would have had for them today, and they're in 6th place.
Oh, checking in with Drop In Gaming, effectively AFKing with the Watson Stunny. Beautiful fences, let me tell you. But I was talking a little bit earlier about Crook. Now, he is effectively playing Bangalore for Drop In Gaming, and you think back to the duration in Apex comp, Crook used to play Gibby and Anchor for Atlanta Premier before they got signed to Oxygen Esports. I'm talking in the depths, right? So transitioning into a more active role has been quite interesting, and I really love to see the journey for Crook's growth. And now, Crook used to play alongside Enemy, who you'll note is actually signed to Disguised's roster.
Both incredible players, both overlooking, in this case, the fight up on height, where Flat, with minimal resources left, are attempting to hold on to a very nice position outside of Thermal. This place has a lot of priority, and unfortunately, as these teams are discovering, a lot of attention thrown at it as well. Oxygen, in this case, throwing a couple of nades over, as we should be getting cracks. 93 for Aiden off of that frag, and a knock from Bane means that Oxygen should be able to wipe at least one member, get a quick shield swap, and hopefully continue the fight.
Nano was able to effectively be the first squad from Flat to be done and dusted, but Exit wants a piece of it. Flat will be the first team to leave our lobby. We were sitting at 60 players for a large majority, but Exit, they need a dominant performance in these final 2 games to make this first match day for them beneficial.
Koifel has already spoken about how crucial it is for him to have an IGL that he can trust, that lets him just go forward and kill teams. Right now, Exet are reining Koifel in after having gotten just a few knocks. They're trying to play the ridge line over here in between Harvester and Thermal. Control as many squads as possible. Stay active, because Exet cannot just get placement points right now. They need kill points as well.
GKS, they need kills. They need placement points. They need a little bit more. Now, GKS is one of those preseason qualifier teams. Also, you got Chaotic, Stay Naughty, and Sauce. And, well, they have to hit this rotation. They did play for that 3rd zone information, and now they make their move over towards it. I'm a little worried about the rotation that could come through from them, specifically with Sentinels and DNO in the midst. But for TSM, they also are going to have a very interesting rotation to make, with Moist kind of lying in wait here.
Man, have they been shuffling their feet too. The fact that both Moist and TSM are right next to each other is just further evidence of the fact that getting into this ring is such a miserable endeavor for both of them, because they've chosen to rotate a little bit late, perhaps one choosing a little bit more than the other. Looking at you, TSM, who have made use of all of the crafters so far. Moist are starting to make their way down, which means that their backs in this case will not be clear as TSM start moving up towards Harvester. Opposite directions for these two squads.
I find it interesting that Furia has positioned themselves towards those supply bins. They've extended out Madness, and he's kind of effectively putting pressure and poking, looking for information. But the space that they've maintained, well, honestly, let's hear what they're up to. A quick listen in with Furia.
That team, the team that was wrapping lower, just wrapped into Cubby.
Behind them, mirroring them too.
Can you guys check mine?
This team is fucking dog panicking. Come on, bridge went bottom Harv, and they're turning in here. I almost killed one, and I think there's 2 teams in Harv. I think there's 2 teams in Harv.
I'll be still.
They're looking for an opener. Keon, you can get good angles on them.
I don't have an angle yet, but I'm trying to look.
Cubby could third party us.
It's bad smokes.
Double balloons in back tree.
Hear you.
Ryzen
Did we kill one?
50 purple.
36 flash in the middle.
Yeah, dead.
Nice.
Great shit, Key.
I'm looking back at Harvey, bro.
Yeah, Harvey's hard prio.
They're coming out middle door. They're going in lava ravine. 42 on Bang. 42
I'm gonna play up, I think, a little bit. I'm gonna play up a little.
Okay, let me know if you call me over if you need me.
Shooting up behind me. Look at me behind me.
Okay.
It might be a solo. No,
Do it. Whole team.
Everybody's full.
Okay, bang with them.
We're going left.
All right, Key, you gotta back up. Key, you gotta back up.
Keon. Get out of there, Keon.
They're stuck underneath. We need to kill them. We need to kill them under.
Yep. I have digis, bro.
I'm trying to sell. Are you still
looking.
there? Under?
No, opposite side. Control our spot.
fine.
Control our
Yeah.
spot.
Control our space, boys.
We need to fight them though.
Yep.
Are they still under? Wait, they're wrapping towards Cubby. I think.
Are they?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
there's
looking
another current. Look for it. Look over.
Yeah, we need to wipe this.
Center. These are kills.
Her in the flash.
Crack conduit.
Yeah.
I'm smoking so I can see what they
I'm holding this.
Conduit looking. Nice.
Her is one.
Nice.
I'm batting.
Conduit one.
Dead.
Nice.
Behind us. Behind us. Another team. Third.
Back up, Key.
I couldn't.
It's okay, just fight. Hold shield.
Yeah. There's left side here.
What? I'm smoking.
One dead.
On the right, peeking right wall. Shield's gone.
No.
Give me a shield.
Yeah.
No, if that was a swap. Damn it.
You'll be all right. Did we get mirror? Did it zone?
No, it was the team that.
The shield swap unable to come through for his Watson, but what a good stand for Furia against the Titans of TSM.
That was so incredibly close, and the spray transfer from Watson, I mean, that's what makes this player in the ALGS history books so legendary. Even now, TSM cannot double back for Hal, and they're going to have to play this out as a duo. That's if Reps even makes it. If Verhulst can survive, a wall goes down, giving Verhulst the chance just to hopefully avoid attention. But even so, I can't help but think that this wall is going to attract some of it.
It definitely will, and now Verhulst left solo to try and rake in as many placement points as possible. We set our sights to the other teams left in the lobby. Luminosity, after effectively taking Lava Fissure for themselves, forcing Albin's skirt out early on, looking to get back to the top of the leaderboard. Sweet and a Wingman. They have a better duo. You got Funk there, effectively throwing the Radiant transfer and just putting so much pressure forward.
And it means that Sweet never has to dip back in to pop a shield bat. It's reload and another volley with the Wingman. Honestly, keeping Oblivion more than honest, absolutely decimated, while Timmy does his best to survive in this tiny little box. GKS hold high ground with Chaotic Munch outputting ridiculous damage. A Whiffed Horizontal does cause problems for them. Chaotic can and will drop down, does so, and gets shot in the back immediately. Commits to the fight, gets a shield swap, and GKS still managed to lose a member with Naughty going down.
Goodbye, Disguise, but the fight's not over. We swing, we look forward. Sentinels is in the midst, and honestly, with a little bit of help from Luminosity, they are able to stave off that. That's a good point there, Dia, because they're going to look to hit that reset. Time is of the essence, but Xset is the team that's effectively north of LG, and that's going to be a fight about to break out.
LG are getting pushed by Xset, even with this Wingman outputting so much damage. Xset go for it, and Xset get melted. Koifel and Fun drop immediately, and it's just the trade on Slayer, with Funk still being able to lay out support with Sweet at his backside. A smoke should cover the recovery of LG, and they'll be right back into this with 7 squads left, and Xset about to leave us.
Moist Esports, they leave us indeed, but it's going to be Verhulst still dead center and Knock effectively pushing it. I'm sure they're dancing around each other, and LG trying to survive. They've been able to take the top of the leaderboard, 52 points, and there's still more to be had. They want double-digit eliminations.
Behind LG, GKS just got back in. Naughty has returned, and as a full 3-person team, GKS are moving up. 9 Lives going to be doing exactly the same, coming around these stairs. Nasty does lay in a lot of damage, but Naughty is down. GKS are burning to death on the low ground, while TSM just tries to survive in the corner.
Verholst is just like, don't mind me, over here, living my best life, texting the buddies, trying to survive and get the point. No, I'm just kidding. He's probably eating. But for Drop-In Gaming, Stunny throwing up the fences, trying to effectively position themselves out of the line of sight. Holding on to, here we go. There it is. Gonna stave off at any of the ordinances, but Native Gaming will fall. We're into the top 5 and inching ever so closer to the double digits, but Funk's on 8.
Verholst going down. We've still got 9 Lives having dropped themselves in order to finish off GKS. This is the final 3 squads. LG in a remarkable position, have already done so much damage, especially with Sweet's wingman, which he is constantly ego swinging with. Drop-In Gaming will have to move. My question is, will 9 Lives actually be on high ground in order to shut them down? From the shots, it appears that 9 Lives have in fact recovered and are pressuring Drop-In from yet another angle. It's LG and 9 Lives in conjunction against Drop-In Gaming, the focus of the lobby.
They have to move, and honestly, this is Luminosity's game to win. They're already on 15 eliminations. We've got the Jenny down here for Drop-In Gaming. The healing is coming through, just trying to bide some time.
Drop-In need a wall, but it's not going to be up in time. They've got one from 9 Lives that cuts the field in half, but with Sweet swinging all of Drop-In Gaming, he is doing that on his own. The backup from Funk just now coming in. Sweet gets behind the wall, and we are playing on a knife's edge with Crook having gone down. Drop-In Gaming is weak. They commit to the fight with LG. Sweet swings out again and again, dips back in just before the shield crack finishes. No swap available for him. It's LG versus 9 Lives for the end.
Oh, this is textbook perfect. The wingman coming through, just the damage, crazy, but Sweet will fall, and Funk and Slayer, well, you've got to clutch up in the end game. Slayer looking for any remnants of a shield swap that are not available. Well, you go for a thirst, and you are able to get one. The Radiant transfer comes through, and Luminosity, they are your winners.
That took such a long time. The shield swap timing almost killed LG, almost denied them the victory. But they managed to just barely come out of this on top. And 9 Lives pulling up a second place. Let me remind you, as I did at the start of today, this is a preseason qualifier team that is making top 3s multiple times today.
That just goes to show you how impressive their macro capabilities are and their rotations just to be effectively able to get there. It's been quite impressive, but honestly, all I care about right now is how many eliminations did Luminosity get? That wingman from Sweet, it was singing, and honestly, oh my God, I'm sweating, Dia. You have to talk. Like, man, this is crazy.
I want to know, like, the ratio, of damage to kills, because Sweet was outputting a lot of damage. And we saw it sometimes transition into kills, but actually, when we think about the way that wingman was hitting, pretty rarely. The swing on them from a lot of teams did get denied, but I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant. The points are going to matter quite a bit here, though, for LG, because they've got a ways to climb on the leaderboard, despite their actually pretty good performance on Stormpoint.
Look, I know a lot of people like to VOD review to see what went wrong, but can we VOD review to see what went right for Sweet and Luminosity? Because effectively after the contest at Lava Fissure, winning that out, forcing Alb to kind of go on that solo mission up north past the wall. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that was a Game of Thrones reference. But being able to come down and work their way over towards that thermal station ending, I can only imagine what that is going to hold on the series results when we touch on that later. But for now, I really want to see a lot of the highlights. We'll get those queued up and ready for you because it was a journey of a match.
It was, and it was weirdly played out too. We had a lot of focus, especially with the Furia fight around the outside at the train line, and Moist rotating through Lava Siphon as well. Meat Lovers doing the same thing. So much focus went into the eastern side of the map when teams like Drop In Gaming very quickly had identified that this was going to pull west, and yet teams chose to fight their way through Harvester, through Tree, instead of approaching from the further north or southern edges of this.
Yeah, and you make a very vital point. Think of Furia, right? They go to Harvester, they craft and immediately barricade forward. We got that beautiful listen in, and it provided a lot of information coupled with some shots to show the positioning of neighboring teams. TSM effectively lying in wait like a shark, just kind of waiting to attack and swarm in on them. And although his Watson put up one of the craziest fights alongside Furia, I honestly thought he might be able to pull it off.
It very nearly did. One or two more sprays go right, and we might be talking about Watson here, but instead we are talking about Sweet piloting LG to yet another victory, and no small credit to Funk either for the opener at Lava Fisher that got them the initial KP.
The hip fire from the triple take. Look, you gotta use what you have, and this right here onto Exet was crazy, and I thought you made a very solid call there with the Radiant transfer coming through, backing up on Sweet, coupled with the wall. He's able to just keep on barricading forward with the Wingman. Now, a lot of people have talked about the Wingman because it is now a care package weapon and has a ton of ammo that effectively took him through the end game. Even here, he still has 60 plus bullets.
This did worry me, actually, quite a bit. Sweet took a few angles that perhaps in retrospect he could reconsider. You can understand why, seeing the way he was landing shots, because this was a game-winning care package weapon. I'm used to seeing it with the Kraber, where at the last second, you'll get a nice knock, and all of a sudden the team fight turns. This time, it was the constant pressure that Sweet was able to put out, and it shocks me that Funk still tops that.
Oh my god. Dia, this is almost 7,000 damage in ALGS in a Pro League match.
And I'll tell you what, it's more than 15 kills as well. 15 kills is an important marker because it marks 25% of the lobby. Going above that is where things tend to get kind of ridiculous. And not a whole lot of teams went untouched by LG. In fact, many of them falling at their hands by single and oftentimes even multiple members. LG, make no mistake, dominated this lobby.
As we look at the match results, LG, a 20 elimination game, a third of the lobby for a 32-point game. Oh my god.
They're proving the haters wrong, and honestly, Tiff, they are proving me wrong quite a bit as well. After watching them in scrims throughout this week, I had kind of fallen off the LG hype train, gone, you know what, maybe the team chemistry isn't working as well as we thought, maybe they don't have the game plans that we thought they did. But after putting up a game like this that can very well keep you afloat, and not just that, but in the top half of the leaderboard from week to week, this is all you need. The consistency can come later. The ability to pop off, that's what'll keep a lot of teams like LG in the conversation.
I also want to give the flowers to 9 Lies, effectively another second place finish, but this time alongside 5 eliminations. So between the top 2 teams, 25 eliminations. And as you see kind of the second half of the results, Oblivion and Meat Lovers, you know, it's really tough. But the fact is, Skirt was able to pick up 2 eliminations despite such a harrowing start.
Fortunately, that was very nearly didn't happen. Skirt have not had the best day, sitting in 14th overall right now, but LG take the lead and they take it by a mile. With only 1 game left, Tiff, normally I wouldn't mention this, but because the lead is very nearly 30 points right now, it is worth mentioning that if you do win by more than 50 points, you can grab a bonus league point today.
Oh, that's
it's
right.
unlikely for LG, but it's possible with games like that.
Look, if they throw down again, that would be absolutely crazy, but let's go to a quick break because I need to compose myself after such a gnarly game. But when we come back, our final map of the day. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the year 4 of the Apex Legends Global Series. And if you're just joining us, well, welcome, because you don't need to go do some VOD reviews. You need to go check out Luminosity's most massive win, quite possibly the best game that I've witnessed thus far today. And Dia, let's go ahead and talk through some of our endings and history throughout our map series that we've seen today.
Yeah, Luminosity stands out from the crowd here because their win was so dominant. When we've had teams like DNO drop in, TSM even, and Moist in the previous 4 matches, these have been wins by just a little bit. And what we came into today going, here we are, the big teams are waking up. We have had a surprising amount of, I'd say, underdogs rising alongside them. You've got the big names, TSM, Moist, LG, DNO, but when you look at 2nd and 3rd place, and even looking at Drop-In Gaming, who I think a lot of people would not have expected to win this game after their performance last split, we are seeing the underdogs rise up alongside them.
It's really interesting that you make a name and you say, hey, those big names are waking up. It's the Titans awakening. We were talking about it in the pre-show. We had some heavy hitters that were effectively going to be duking it out in A and C. And if you added just a few more names to this lobby, or, you know, moved some things around, it could basically be land potential quality, in my opinion. But for that now, we have to turn our sights to game number 6. Can Luminosity effectively hit that margin that you brought up? We're talking bonus points here.
We are, and again, very, very unlikely. It's one of those things that you bring up just to make sure that everybody's aware of how crazy this is. And with our final game now beginning, this is where we get to evaluate the potential, and importantly, evaluate LG again, because last time they won the contest against Skirt and transitioned that into a really good game with a great path, Fisher, Mirage, Zone. This time, unlikely to have the very same thing happen, be it either the contest or blue path.
But this is a very interesting drop here. Effectively, Skirt pulling out of the contest, like you had mentioned. Oh my God, go in, Mirage. But for Oversleepers, this is another contest for Landslide in particular. And I know, Dia, we kind of have these conversations where, like, Landslide, a contested POI? Well, for Oversleepers, Charmander, it's back to the ball for you. I'm sorry, the lobby.
And it's back to sleep. Not getting to play the game up against Oblivion anymore. An early punish that we didn't quite get to see, and then some rough positioning up on top leaves everything in the hands of Oblivion. And a fast couple kills like that will mean the world to them, as right now Oblivion's goal is to be in the top 10. If they continue, if they have a good game here, they could clinch top 5, which again, for a preseason qualifier team, would be such a high standard to set.
As we get to look towards that zone, it's Meat Lovers over in Climatizer. They need a zone because effectively, when you think about it, they're in 7th place overall on the day with 35 points, and they would love to move ahead of them because effectively 4 points separates them from a top 5 finish.
And you know what's interesting here is that I'm looking at Meat Lovers, and they have, like you said, done pretty well today. A 7th place, not terrible. Actually, probably where we'd expect Meat Lovers to end. The fact that they're just below TSM is probably the thing that's getting to them most. Meat Lovers' brand has been mad science and TSM kryptonite.
That's true. I really do miss the days where Meat was contesting TSM, but alas, no longer.
If they can place above TSM today, I guarantee you Tech is tweeting about it.
Oh, 100%. He goes hard on the social media. What do you mean?
He does. There's honestly, there's no way he's not tweeting about today anyways. This last game, however, will determine perhaps how happy he is about it. Skirt certainly happy to have escaped their initial landing spot, since they managed to split Mirage, and it'll likely change the way that LG want to loot as well. Because they don't have Mirage Etoile unlooted anymore, it's much better for LG to move through something like Countdown and get access to both Beacon and Crafter.
This is going to be an interesting for Flat here. Nano smoking, barricading forward. Louis able to grab that opening knock, but Nano, the biggest enemy for him was going to be that fence, but he does get to the high ground and effectively starts putting down the pressure.
Akimbo, Fallen, Last crack is a big one. Furia already here on the third party. Very little HP has actually been lost, however, by Vlad. And Watson this time is not going to be connecting for nearly as much damage. Pretty low on the meds, and with no openers, Furia are going to back off. Is a wise call, not wanting to risk their whole game on an early fight that they don't have any reason to take.
Honestly, Furia was one of the biggest question marks for me out of Group C. Yes, I liken them to a Titan for this lobby as well, really proving to show that Group C is the group of death. But for a top 5 position thus far, with Watson's return to comp and playing alongside Keon and bringing in Madness, their calls have been really good. We got that listen in and just hearing Madness hype up Keon. It's a really good moment for them, but they don't land Climatizer anymore, so their rotation will be something that I'll have to keep an eye out for.
Who does land Climatizer? It's Meat and TSM are encroaching on their territory, risking eviction. TSM, with very little cover to play, are going to use, I'm not going to call it a panic wall, but certainly one that was forced out and not by their own intention. See how well they can stabilize underneath the remainder of Climatizer. Some teams should still be paying attention to this. There's little safe space to play.
The only thing I think about when I see them land and immediately start to slow heal with the shield cells is, you know, if you had a conduit, you would have just popped Radiant Transfer to make sure that no one was going to effectively push you. But regardless, hey, they're doing just okay without it.
Sentinels look down on them, hoping they can pick up a few kills today. 18th place, not the start that they were hoping for, but I do like that they've switched off of the panic composition that we talked about earlier. It's back to basics, and for Sentinels, keeping that mentality is going to be the most important thing. It could even change their fates in this 6th game, despite the absolutely terrible loot that they have so far. Triple whites playing the bridge. It is a death trap for them, but Sentinels have only this game left to try and get out of the bottom 5.
Yeah, but if the comp change works for them, then maybe as we go forward throughout our regular season split 1, they can just really start kind of grasping at everything and clawing their way up the series leaderboard. Furia, though, making their way towards that bridge. I see Native. Wait, yeah, Native over there. Arcan as well. TSM taking some space. And let's pull up the map, because this is where I'm curious. Last map, Dia, we went through the entirety of Ring 1, and at one point, we had all 60 players in the lobby until they had that oxygen fight.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty calm lobby. Most of the time when we get to Game 6 is where teams actually try and eke out a little bit more of an advantage, take fights that may not be the best, but we're seeing almost the opposite play out in the games today, and especially in this one, where I would have anticipated a lot more early fighting and early commits, say even in engagements like this, where just above, DNO have managed to hold an awkward position, albeit in Climatizer, but a tenable one that nonetheless, expending the Conduit ultimate and sealing the doors, DNO should be stable for the next ring.
It's going to be really tough, and this is similar to another zone that we witnessed happen in the EMEA region, and a lot of places to play in these Climatizer main buildings, and having Catalyst on the majority of our teams, reinforcing doors, anchoring them off with the piercing spikes as well. But for teams that need to hit that rotation, most notably Xset, who have poised themselves around Survey Camp and knock with a little wall bounce for style.
Also, great style in terms of what they're wearing. Double golds, super valuable, especially with the way that Xset have been trying to play over the course of today. Not exactly a zone team, you may have noticed. Instead, trying to take fights around the edge, trying to pick up kills. And I say trying because it is the operative word. Has not always been working for Xset. Instead, now with Trials, of course, benefiting them in the long run, they're playing through the western side of the ring, and again playing slow, but with the gold shields making the difference, perhaps this will be the turning point where they can use the extra momentum they get off of those to turn it into a few more KP.
We'll have to keep our eyes on that, but for Luminosity, who are still in the zone, going towards this jump tower to really give them that upper edge that they need to fight their way into Climatizer, I'd be curious to see how this works out for them, because this is going to be tough. The large majority of our teams have already made their way into Climatizer, so trying to find something that is free and being able to walk into it will be relatively tough because they've taken so much damage from the zone.
Yeah, north side of Climatizer, fortunately enough, empty, but a couple bullets could mean the end of LG, where XSET's evac tower tells a very different story. LG do manage to barely make it into that northernmost tip of Climatizer that is, as of yet, untouched by the zone. The next ring actually pulling to continue keeping them in a safe space. In later zones, however, this will mean that they have to, unfortunately, get out of here and start making their way toward the opposite side, perhaps even using a gondola if necessary.
Legacy, we had so many questions for them and their return here to Pro League under this name. And now they've got the zone information, but we've got a battle that needs to break out. But with Yanya on the high ground, yes, the Radiant transfer has come through, but we're going to take some time to actually just full heal up. But 9 Lives has been so interesting today for kind of their performance in Pro League coming from those preseason qualifiers. They've effectively moved inside, reinforced the doors, but Yanya says, oh, nah, that's not going to work on me.
That was a great sandwich play from Legacy, knowing that they had the 3-2-1 on Jaguares' door. The nade breaking doors is changing the fight for Legacy. And with a singular knock, all that's left for them to do is take a reset on the outside, make sure they're full HP, and push in to punish this res. No ordinances come through afterwards, however, and it means they've all got to swing the door now onto a full 3-person team. In they come through the wall. Nazul blinded, but still laying out shots onto the top. Hits the Radiant transfer, keeps his team in the fight. It's him and Yanya against the world in a 1v1. 9 Lives do go down in Overlook.
And look, now we've got a third party nonetheless. Disguise wants to clean up what they can, but hear me out. The energy barricade might make things a little bit more interesting, but Yanya effectively goes down and Timmy keeps on slaying the damage forward. Yes, the frag comes through, but we're able to just get out of sight for that damage and still peppering in. They want to clean this up.
Next ordinance changes the fight, but it doesn't change it enough. It is still a 3 versus 1, and Legacy go down in 17th. No third party on Disguised, who had arrived just in time to pick up what turned out to be 2 KP for themselves. A really good way for them, of course, to continue in this lobby, but really punishing for Legacy.
We need to talk about the zone, Dia. We need to talk about it. Luminosity, yes, they've effectively made their way over towards Climatizer, but that's not where we're ending. And half of these teams don't have the information that is needed to make a call on that zone. Disguised winning that engagement against Legacy puts them in such a powerful position.
This is actually like so not real. I know that it says it on my map, but look at where everyone is playing. Recognize these people play Apex Legends for a living, and now the fact that we've all gotten it wrong and need to move south. Like you said, Disguised are looking good. LG looking especially rough. How will they make their way into the next ring? Let's listen in to find out.
Over here, just follow me completely and wall when I say so.
I'm gonna kill you.
Oh my god, you fucking... Oh my god.
We're dead.
Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
I can't. We're dead.
Oh my god.
These guys aren't even rotating, bro.
Yeah.
One died. One died.
One of them just died outside. Funk, maybe stay...
Show. Bat right here. Bat right here. I have it knocked. I'm gonna hold it.
Run along low ground. Try to get here.
Blocking it.
Run along low ground and try to get to my yellow
spot. That's all you, bro.
They have to focus on the rotate and the resing. This is good.
Yeah. Play yourself. One on my ping. 2 on my ping.
They have to leave that building. They have to leave that building.
They're looking at you. There's 2 there.
I'm dead.
Oh, good, bro.
Oh, fuck. Just once again, the worst zone in the game. Oh, great game, guys. I mean,
let's get it first, bro.
Worst zone in the game. Caster Curse goes brazy. But for the teams that are making their way towards that zone, Fury and Disguised being the only teams to be there, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, very difficult move. As actually LG had noted, most teams in Climatizer, instead of focusing on their rotate, are focusing on kills because that is what is left to them. It is almost impossible, especially if you've put yourself deep into Climatizer, to actually make your way out. Think of where TSM landed early, and now thinking think of how to get out of there and actually access the rest of the game. Everybody's going to try and do it, but many will fall along the way.
And there is a ring console that is left in Climatizer, but with so many teams surrounding it, it is too costly to even try. You're not gonna be able to get there. You would have to expend walls, smokes, anything, and even then someone would full send you. However, if Dudes Night Out and TSM, they leave here, the time is of the essence. We've got 26 seconds and still need to hit a rotation.
We've got the fence line to play with here. All ultimates available. Evac tower doesn't look like it's at least in Hal's inventory. TSM, however, likely have one to work with, where teams on the low ground like Furia are technically in ring and can actually camp here looking for a few stray kills that may funnel themselves into the ring. Except get a res onto Koi, and an unlikely one at that. Hoping they can reset and make their way up to high ground. If Exet stabilize here, they actually could get one of the best spots in the game.
We knew this was gonna happen. Dudes Night Out, native TSM reps trying to stay alive. Verholst able to get back to full health. But with the entire roster of DNO behind you, they're moving to the other way, and native whittles away, finds Hal, drop-in gaming down and out, and Evan, the anchor, the work hard, play hard that Stella brought up in the pre-show is gonna have to ring true here.
Really difficult move. Destroys the conduit ultimate, but still has to basically put on his acting clothes, his costume, to see what teams he can pretend to be on, because right now it is looking doomed for TSM, and Verholst does in fact go down. Furia, with the defensive position on the low ground, have managed to take out Native, albeit with Madness going down. A reset is incoming while Keon steps up to defend.
This is such a tough position to play from, especially early on. Now, granted, the train tracks just kind of northeast of them you can win from, but Keon able to get that hip fire going on the Volt, and the 30-30 trying to find some damage goes down to about 10 HP. Sentinels have fallen, DNO have fallen, and it's gonna be GKS that plays from that northern position.
Exet come in for the third party. Koifel still up, but Nocturnal has fallen. Can they get him back into the game? Can they continue to output pressure? But no, they get pushed from behind. This is going to be the end of it for Exet. They can no longer continue to play out the rest of the game. Koifel falls in the air. Exet are gone, and it's Evolution that take them out.
Furia to join them as well. This is so tough. Our lobby being whittled down by one of the most atrocious zone pulls that we've seen thus far. And guess who's still here? Meat.
At the end of it all, they had the most flexible position at the northernmost end of Climatizer in the small buildings that nobody else was going to play. They now look out over at Disguised. It's Meat, Disguised, and Moist, who all played the northern end of this ring. I do wonder what Meat will do with this, since they have to fight one of the teams, and they do have high ground on Moist and a lot of damage from Luxford.
Oh, but an overpeak from Luxfordy there gets him caught off guard. Shout out to Enemy from DSG to be able to pick that up. Can we get the reset before it's too late, or will we play without them? For Disguise, we have to move from the high ground, and a lot of damage being put towards those teams on the north. Unfortunately, Meat Lovers, they will fall, and GKS joins them.
Timmy's just built different, and some really nice 30-30 shots end that team faster than it had any right to. Oxygen, with one player left, have reads searching for thirsts. 4 teams are left in this game, and Oxygen want to claw their way into just one more position. An awkwardly placed nade does deny an exit, but it doesn't get reads any further, still having to take the 1v1 and losing at the end of all of that to just the one member left from Evolution. Moist start to move in. Yaz still alive, and DSG recognizing the last threat in the lobby. Yes, there's one member on the low ground, but it's Moist versus DSG for the win.
The sights are set, a 3v3v2. How do you effectively put pressure onto Moist to try and whittle their resources down? Evolution playing from the train tracks on the low ground as a duo. You can see Enemy going for the ult excels. We want to try and get that wall up for endgame.
with high ground belonging to them and only a solo. Remember, on Evolution, there may have even been a res actually. Now as I'm looking down, a duo and an attempted respawn beacon in for Evolution. If they can get a third back into this game, it changes everything and puts so much pressure on Disguised.
Moist on the low ground. It looks like they might be out of resources. Oh, nope, just kidding. It comes through. Voodoo, you're coming back in that end game.
Back into the lobby. Evolution start pushing up. No space left to play in this ring. Moist don't want to push this, but they may have to. The first knock comes in, and it's Disguised, who are still maintaining high ground. Will Moist get greedy? Will they play for a second? Who wants the win, and who wants the kills? Disguised swinging onto Moist, want the kills. Designful goes down to finish one, then turns immediately onto Moist, swinging through the wall and eviscerating them. Another catwall comes in, and with a Horizon gravity lift up, Designful gets to assess the situation. Neither team is finished, but DSG are committing to Moist.
He yeets across the catwall, and they are taking down Moist as we throw down, but it's going to allow Evolution to lie in wait. Yes, they lost out on Voodoo again, but we're still barricading forward.
No ult left for Urice. Instead, the turn on to Evolution means that Yaz will fall. Disguise now have to take on Moist, who they neglected to finish. Enemy goes low, but does not go down. Timmy pops on up with the gold R99 and shoos through Moist once again. Disguise take the win in game number 6.
We were curious to see what the performances would look like from Disguised's first showing here in split 1 of year 4, and ending out with a win in game number 6 answers our questions. They did it in scrims, they performed exceptionally well, and they can do it in Pro League.
That was such an immaculately played end game, and I know that a lot of people look at the Disguised roster and go, well, they're just really talented, they're good at clicking on people, and so they win. That very end game demonstrates that, well, it's part of it. That is not the whole story. Disguised masterfully navigated what was 2 squads that were both trying to avoid an engagement. Everybody wanted to play for first. Nobody was able to outplay Disguised's high ground.
No, that high ground just reigned supreme. I'd love to go ahead and look at some of those highlights throughout our final map of the day. Now, granted, Dia, it's been a really long journey. Beautiful 6 games in EMEA this morning and some action-packed ones for North America. I think this A and C matchup is going to be something to behold.
It is, and fortunately enough, we are going to get to see a little bit more of Group C for both regions in tomorrow's games, but so much of what we saw this game came down to rotational fights, as honestly it should. While it was a bit awkward coming out of Climatizer, teams like Disguised and Legacy fighting in Overlook did so cleanly, and the timing from Disguised on this fight was really what won it for them. Just the right arrival time changes an entire game of Apex Legends, puts you in a winning position.
This was tough, right? We saw Luminosity fall, knowing where they had to get to, but for Furia, playing from that position was really tough. It can be great late game, but not early.
Yeah, and ultimately on low ground, you do give up quite a bit of priority. It's why we saw them get pushed by Sentinels and then X-Set, ultimately Evolution. Fury have to play perfectly to avoid all of that on the low ground, and credit where it's due. They did so quite a bit of the time, picked up a lot of kills on the way. Ultimately, the reset from Evolution, though, comes through as one of the most miraculous things that we saw in this endgame.
Now this was nice. We see the wall, we see the damage come through immediately onto Moist. Now, we talk about the G7 Scout because I think that's a really interesting choice, but that rate of fire, it is going to make this end game for enemy so much more beneficial, racking up a lot of damage. We look at those match 6 results. It's a 25-point game for Disguised, and Moist Esports a really consistent showing here on their first debut in North America with 16 points.
And a much-needed game for Disguised as well. We're still sitting in the bottom 10 after 5 games. Now they can finally push themselves up the leaderboard and in the league as a whole, because you cannot afford to miss a day, especially when you're aiming for LAN, and as we know for Disguised, even more than that, having already attended a LAN.
As we look on the second half of our match 6 lobby, TSM, that was tough. They made a call, they committed to Climatizer, and then they lost out on that rotation, the atrocious zone pull that came through. Skirt, Native, DNO tied up in that. But for Oversleepers, losing that contested landslide made one of the earliest exits of our map number 6. Now let's go ahead and get our crew back together. Stella, Zephyr, welcome back. It's been a journey throughout our day, and man, couldn't do it without y'all.
It has been such an incredible journey. Yeah, that last match was a doozy. That zone pull was quite unfortunate, but like Dia said, it was a very valiant effort. I mean, we saw that Evolution try to get their third in, but of course did get eliminated for it. But I have to point out that Disguised had that perfect horizon gravity lift that let them see right over the horizon. It was perfect. What did you think, Zephyr?
In the end, it's incredibly difficult to play out a zone like that, and we'll get the chance to talk about it a little later, but especially that pull giving much more of a wealth here towards that eastern side really came back to bite so many teams, as it allowed a lot more of this end game height that you usually don't see when we go towards that train line.
Yeah, so speaking of talking about final circles, let's go ahead and actually take a look at those final circles that we had for the last half of the day today. Now, Zephyr, help me walk through this, especially here with game number 4.
Now, Moist here, this game is all about control, especially when we're going this direct to Dome, and I'll have y'all remember that the pole was slightly over towards the west, which many teams didn't quite have that kind of analysis. For Moist, flying onto these silos uninhibited here, and then laying control, whether it be the shots, whether it be the conduit, adding in the extra help from the Radiant transfer, or even some of those piercing spikes here from Guild on the opposite silos, preventing every roster below them who had the horizon from getting up to the same advantageous height from taking advantage. As a result, in their final moments here, when they were forced to drop down, they had dealt so much damage and had laid staking control to every single roster that picking up this win was easy.
Yeah, from match 5, how did you feel about these catalyst walls coming up? I think we all made that call about, oh, beautiful walls.
I mean, no, it was really good and really well used, I think, by both teams. Of course, we were so focused on LG, who had more than just a catalyst wall to play, but the fact that 9 Lives even go for that in the first place, opening up the chance for LG to get a little bit more aggressive onto drop-in gaming, is the thing that kicks off this end game fight. When it came down to it, the most impressive part of this end game to me does have to be the wingman. It was the most impressive part of the game. It was the most impressive part of LG's Game 5 win. That and, of course, the shield swap that very nearly gave me cardiac arrest.
Yeah, that was a very dicey shield swap. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off, but Tiff, walk us through match number 6, what we just saw in this incredible final circle.
What we saw was Disguised essentially holding high ground, putting all the pressure forward, and honestly, dare I say it, a beautiful wall. No, shout out to the people on social media tagging all of the casters, talking about these walls, but it's so important for endgame to hold out on those lines of sights, and Designful yeeting himself over it, barricading down, finding the elimination onto MT, and they just keep on moving forward. Now, granted, Evolution tried to do something that would have been really vital for them, get Voodoo back in, but unfortunately losing out on them early on in the hip fire from enemy, the G7 Scout, and we end it with some R9 spray, which when you think about it, even with R9 having that damage nerf, it's still one of the most utilized SMGs in North America, and Timmy just showing us why.
And it has the absolute best skin on it as well. But let's take a look at the series results here after match day 2, and LG is leading with 10 points above Moist Esports, sitting at 72. Moist Esports in second with 63, and Furia at 49. Zephyr, what do you make of all these points?
It's been a toss-up today. We've seen the best and worst of so many of these teams, and even a dominating team like Luminosity, who ends the day with 72, had their downfalls where they even finished 16th, and the same can be said for so many of these other rosters. We talked about the group of death of C, but this mixture of A and C seems to be the highest stakes that exist, I'd argue, anywhere in the world.
Yeah, Dia, now we do see that Oxford Esports is at 22 points. And we're going to be taking a look at the season standings here. Look at the numbers that we see here, the differences between the top 10 teams.
I think the scariest part of this is probably the fact that LG and TSM are technically above Dark Zero, but that's after 2 match days. Everybody in the top 5 has had 2 opportunities to play, and it's only DZ that stay in the conversation. After that, we do drop down a little bit further, with Oxygen actually having a respectable finish, but again, with 2 match days behind them. Teams like Elevate, teams like Furia, and Dark Zero, all of whom will be returning tomorrow with Moist, have the opportunity to push this even higher and further the gap between them and the rest of the squad. Say those in 11th to 20th Zephyr.
Yeah, down here at the bottom, Disguised, Optic, FaZe, 9 Lives, they'll all make their reappearance. And for many of these rosters, it actually hasn't been the worst. Many of them showing up, stunning out, even Disguised just recently finding wins of their own. They'll get the opportunity tomorrow to see if they can deliver the same kind of consistency as we breach the matchup between each other.
Yeah, and obviously tomorrow we are going to be seeing all of the teams finish their first round robin run, and I am so excited to see exactly how everything is going to line up, because we are still seeing all of these teams with only 1 series played at the bottom of the list, and I want to know if they're going to be able to rise up into the ranks. And Tiff, I don't know, but I'm excited to see Complexity and all the others play tomorrow.
I'm excited to see Dark Zero because they were the ones that won their match day showing, and you start to think about the consistency throughout the regular season, and that is all we are looking towards. Can they get another match day win, or who knows what's going to happen? Optic Gaming could make a play for it.
Yeah, and you know, we've been talking about all these teams that have been outperforming and doing so well today, but Zephyr, I think you had a specific person in mind with speaking about MVP.
If you guys could see what goes on behind the scenes here in the prod chat as we're working our way through the games, you would agree as much as I do when I say that Sweet deserves the MVP and more after today's matches. While we leave things a little bit slow in our final matchup, there's so much to say about what is to be proven about a man like Sweet and, of course, LG as a whole. And you would think after day 1, we're done and dusted. 4th place is good enough. But LG turn around. They improve. They come back into it and dominate. And I truly mean that. They dominate. We were talking about even breaching the 50-plus point bonus point mark at some point here. And Sweet, of course, is the leader of that pack. Notably, with 7k plus damage on games alone here, one of the top 7 damage differentials and the 3rd highest KP overall. Sweet also addresses it with none other than the highest KDA on the day of here. For NRG, it is to no surprise. But for some out there who have seen this roster falter after what was split 2 into champs, looking towards Sweet, having to prove himself alongside Funk and Slayers as a new Ember, something that they had not seen out of an IGL who needs to take the realm with 2 other new teammates, he delivers. He comes through and he finishes the day on top.
Yeah, it's incredible to see that just last week, LG had been in 4th place with only 49 points at the end of Series 1, and now they've jumped to the top, and it's been incredible to see how well Sweet's team has been performing.
Yeah, it's something remarkable here, especially after the doubters that we've had, the Sweet Dream deniers, after some exchanges here on the roster prior to our season.
Yeah, well, actually, we don't have Sweet himself, but we do have a very important member of his team, Funk, here to talk with us about the matches today. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I see you're vibing in your dark room in your little cave. How did you feel with the matches today?
I couldn't feel any better. Honestly, my teammates, shout out to my teammates, the best teammates I could ask for. We all played fantastic today, while splitting at POI too, our conning at Fisher. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Just shout out to my teammates, the GOATs.
Those were some first really impressive initial knocks that you guys had. I want to talk a little bit about preparing for the contest, because you guys were doing it in scrims all week. How many game plans did you have, and how many did you actually run today when thinking about basically how to get out of your POI alive?
We had like at least like 10 game plans, but we only used 1 today, and it ended up working. So
okay.
Yeah, they then just left.
It was
they
very
left after we got a good game.
executed.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, hey, if you're pressuring that much and you've caused a team to leave, you've done your job. There's no need to have exterior game plans here, but I know there's going to be a lot of questions kind of revolving around Sweet, but I actually want to take this one back and focus on not just you, but also your teammate Slayers and how this transition has been for this roster, especially after you guys kind of really getting your come up here. What has it been like, especially to make that jump now alongside Luminosity to represent and then come through on a day like this?
It's been pretty crazy, but me and Slayer played before, and then Sweet wanted to take us in as a duo, and then from there we just been like, I'm not good at talking in interviews. I'm sorry, but we just started playing. I don't know. I'm so bad at this stuff, man.
No, you're doing great.
Fine. You're doing fine.
Sure. I just want to know about the transition of you and Slayers obviously coming through here from, say, rosters like Stallions to now Luminosity alongside IGLs like Sweet. What has that been like?
It's been good. It's been good. It's been rough in scrims, but scrims don't mean everything, you know? It's way different, and scrims to the game, to an actual match day is so much different than you think, you know? So people base scrim results on like how teams will perform, but we play way better in match day than scrims. And I think that's what people need to start like looking at.
You know what? If they're not looking at it after this last game, they definitely need to start taking notes. But I want to continue to ask, especially since you guys are rocking with Funk on that conduit. I am curious, especially since this is the guy who, or my apologies, you're Funk. I'm so sorry. You're rocking on that conduit. And I'm kind of curious. Do you feel like you are enabling your teammates here on it to kind of push forward and look for that extra damage, say in Sweet's case today? Or is it something that's helping you out, allowing you to extend more, find that KP, and lead the pack? Because you did finish the day highest KP overall.
I think it's more of a team character, because the way Sweet likes to play, I feel like Conduit's really good for playing like around him, you know? He likes to play really split, wide, get angles, and Conduit Q like saves him a lot, I think. So I think Conduit's like the best character for that.
Yeah, so I was curious about match day one. Obviously, you learned a lot from that lineup, but this was a completely new one. But what did you take from match day one that you learned and bring this incredible performance today?
Just not to be nervous and just run at everyone and kill them. That's basically it.
Would you say that you were kind of W-keying this day?
Kind of. I mean, we were in Godspot every game on Stormpoint, but Road's Edge, we were just looking for fights.
You know, when you're talking about the difference between scrims and Pro League, I wanted to know if you had a sort of pre-game ritual. Everybody has a different take on it. Is there something that you do before match days in order to actually make sure that you and your team are on the same page and that you're specifically in the right headspace?
Yeah, we just play together before for like an hour, and when we do that, we always lock in and play very good. That's about it.
Do you play ranked or LTM?
We'll do like con practice and stuff like that.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so touching on practice, how has it been working with Android Dream as the coach for the squad?
It's been very good. I think Android's one of the best coaches in the game. He knows what he's talking about, and he always I don't know, I just think he's one of the best coaches in the game, and he'll prove it.
Has he taught you anything new about your play style, or what's been the most important piece of advice that he's given to you that has changed your perspective on how you play?
He tells me to play off Sweet better, like the way Sweet plays. I just play off of him, and that's what he told me. I play better off that.
Amazing. Zeph, do you have any final questions?
You know, the man himself put you here because he wants you to represent. You know, he feels he's gotten enough love as the Sweet Dreams legend. So I'm going to give you one final platform to maybe introduce yourself to the world or share one final thought regarding yourself or your roster.
I don't know, man. I just all love to my teammates, man. That's it. I don't know. We got the best teammates in the game.
And I'm going to ask you a little bit of a silly question before we go, because it's been a topic of conversation recently. Do you want Gibby meta back or not?
Nah, no one wants that
back. I'm going to do a poll slowly but surely. So thank you. And again, very well played today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was Funk talking to us about the day. Welcome back, Tiff. Oh my goodness. I absolutely loved his energy. Even though he was nervous, but you could tell he was just absolutely riding off the high of today.
The adrenaline that has to be pumping throughout that entire roster, and Funk in particular, is something to behold. Congratulations once again to them. And I was perusing the timeline during that interview, kind of listening to it, and I saw a tweet from Albin. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. GG's at Sweet Dreams, at Slayer, at Funk. Y'all played out of your mind these past 2 weeks. We'll be looking at a new World's Edge POI to fight for this month into the new season. I call that a victory for LG.
I believe so. Well, Dia, do you have any final thoughts for today's matches?
No, it's been a wonderful day of matches, and I think I'm most impressed, of course, by the team's ability, as much as we talk about LG, to actually stay relatively close. LG was the standout far ahead of the crowd, but I felt like today was a very, very close match day, and as you've expressed multiple times, Stella, I can't wait to see the round robin completed tomorrow as Group C takes the stage again.
Yeah, super excited for that. And Zephyr, last final thoughts for today.
I know we've done a lot of discussion about teams like LG here, and of course even Moist earlier. So I want to throw one final bone out to Furia, who also are on the same tracks of having a lot to prove today. Any other differing lobby, and this would have been a insane performance from them, having some of the highest damage done out of guys like Madness and Watson, representing for the very first time here on this roster and showing up in ways where a lot of us still have a lot of lingering questions here. So between them and the others, I can't wait to see how they transition that to tomorrow's final day of round robin.
Yeah, and speaking of tomorrow's games, Tiff, I know I'm going to see you in Twitch chat because tomorrow is going to be day 3 of Split 1, where we round out the round robin run, and it will be beginning bright and early tomorrow with groups B and C facing off, starting with EMEA at 10 a.m. PT or 6 p.m. GMT, and North America at 3 p.m. PT and 11 p.m. GMT.
Yeah, we've got the likes of Orglis and Hungary, who the former Vex roster have something to prove now that they do not have an organization to stand under. But Alliance, they will return, and will the changes and the pacing that we've had questions about for affect Yuki and Hackis? Can they right what has effectively been going wrong for this trio? And affect himself on the Catalyst, kind of toggling between Horizon, but we want that Catalyst to be the stand so Yuki can slot in on the Conduit. So we'll have to wait and see what they bring to the table tomorrow. But other teams in North America, like Elevate, reigning from the preseason qualifiers and being superior and taking it home in the first one that we saw. They had a really standout performance in match day number 1, but they are back alongside the likes of Dark Zero, PLP, Optic Gaming, and man, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and you know that Group B is just raring to go tomorrow, so I am so excited to be able to watch that along with y'all. Tiff, Dia, Zephyr, thank you so much for being here with me today and breaking down everything with your perfect analysis. All right, and thank you to everyone here for watching. And just in case you do miss tomorrow's matches, don't worry. You can catch up on everything at Play Apex Esports on YouTube and Twitch, and also follow us at Play Apex Esports on X for anything that you might miss, including scorecards. Thank you so much to everyone for watching today, to our producers, our talent, our incredible